You guys let us know when you can see and hear us. Hello, hello.
Alfonso, hi. Glad you made it.
Wirehead's in the house. Afternoon, KJ. Can see and hear. Awesome.
There's a handsome fella. I think so. I agree.
I appreciate that.
He's pretty good looking.
My floppy hair that I'm growing out. So.
No need to call attention.
How many,
oh, yeah, you can see something in the back.
How many jean jackets do you have? We need the ultimate question answered. Actually, this isn't a jean jacket. I mean, jean jackets, as far as those go, I have two. I have two different ones. I have a dark vintage one with more of a waxy finish, and then I have a lighter kind of, I don't want to say acid wash. It's not 80s, but it's lighter. And then I had two different denim shirts, but now this is the only one I have. The other one that I had that you maybe saw in the first couple of years of this show finally had to be retired. And then I have a blue button-down shirt that may look denim, but it's actually flannel that I just picked up. And that shirt is the business. I'm not sponsored. I get nothing out of this, but boy, Spoke of London absolutely nailed their flannel button-down shirt drops this year. They're so soft. It's almost like cashmere. It feels so good.
Oh, yeah, it's nice. They make really nice, really high-quality products.
Yeah.
I wish they would sponsor.
Yeah.
Or at least give us affiliate links.
So
that would also be nice.
Yeah. But, yeah, so that is the question answered as far as my jean jackets. I guess we can go home now.
I know, and I know some people give you, a little heck for wearing like the same thing every episode.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that. I get it, but at the same time, like I try not to like overconsume if I can help it, and so like I have a selection of t-shirts, I have a selection of overshirts. And while they may fall kind of within the same genre of clothing, like it works for me. And so like I don't needlessly kind of spend if I don't have to. I buy quality stuff that lasts for years and years and years, which is why you keep seeing it for years and years and years. Because I used to, like when we first started the channel, I was going to like H&M and stuff like that. And I was buying shirts and things because I was trying to vary it up. But in reality, in like that first year, I spent a small fortune buying clothes because you'd wear them 2 or 3 times, wash them 2 or 3 times, and then suddenly you can't wear them on camera anymore. They turn into, dusting rags because the collar stretches out and all of that. And so after like, I don't know, a year and a half of H&M or Uniqlo or anything like that, I just said, enough's enough. Like I've got a closet full of crap I can't wear. I want to wear stuff. I want to buy stuff that's going to last. And that's how I found Spoke. That's how we found Buck Mason, or you found Buck Mason for me as a gift. True Classic, you found that for me. And I've just been a really big fan of those like 3 brands. Yeah, I get it. Some of their stuff gets expensive, but I haven't had to buy new t-shirts in like 3 years since making the switch, as opposed to buying new t-shirts like every 3 months. So it all kind of evens out in the wash, so to speak.
Well, do you want to start with any of the I pulled a few questions from our Radiant Acoustics review.
Yeah.
Since we're not doing a more traditional Unplugged video today, I did pull a few comments. Do you have those?
I do. So the first one was, what did you think about the Radiance?
Sorry, I'm not pausing because I'm hesitant on what to say. I was actually in the middle of posting to Facebook, so momentarily distracted.
Got it.
Oh my gosh, I really liked them.
Okay.
I really liked them. It was and I know you talked about this in the video, it was an adjustment because we went from the Bang & Olufsen 90 speakers to the Radiance. And honestly, they sounded completely different than what I remembered prior to
the 90s.
The Bang & Olufsen's,
Yeah.
coming into the home for review. So it was a shock. Like, I'm like, are these the same speakers? Because before the 90s arrived, we'd been listening to them for a couple of weeks at least. And I was like, these are really good.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they're not.
They didn't suddenly become...
They didn't suddenly become a different speaker.
Yeah.
But I just personally have never had such a strange reaction or an adjustment period, I guess, going from something like the 90s to the Radiance.
Yeah.
I thought they were really intelligible. I think they're very well made.
Incredibly well made. Incredibly well made. I remember the first time I took them out of the box, because they're not big for bookshelves. They're good. They're not tiny. They are a little larger than like the Lumina 2s, but they weigh like twice as much. Like, it's like pulling a big rock out of the box. It was kudos on the build quality.
And I thought they're pretty. The only thing I didn't love was the Purify something another woofer.
Oh, the driver, yeah.
The edges. It was a little.
It's a big deal, but yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's a function to that design. It just was odd to look at. That's all. But other than that, I really enjoyed the experience. But I do agree with you with what you said in your video review, is that they really do need a very specific type of amp. And amps that we've had great success with in the past, like as an example, the Yamaha RN 2000A. I mean, you would have thought someone had chopped its what's off. It just wasn't a good match.
Yeah.
So I think those are all important pieces of information that
Sure.
We want to present to you, and it's not in a way to say, oh, it makes the speaker bad. I know there was a lot of people that, there was like one comment that basically was like, oh, a masterclass in saying how something is shitty. And it's like, but that wasn't the intention at all. So I guess it's very difficult. I can understand for some viewers to not, if something isn't an absolute, like, if we're not spoon feeding you this is the best thing that's ever played in our house, or it's the worst, there doesn't seem like the ability to read, like have something in the middle, or that's good but maybe requires X or Y.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I do, and that's something that off and on throughout today's show, I think we're going to end up touching upon with the other 3 questions you pulled. Because it's like variety is the spice of life. We say that all the time. There's more than one speaker, and there's going to be a perfect speaker for everybody. And it's not going to be the same for any 2 people. And so I really hope people saw that clarity review and understood that it is a very capable, very well designed, very high performing loudspeaker. But we have to keep things in the proper perspective sometimes, and that is at like $4,500, $4,600 a pair, with some notable power needs and some setup and placement notations. I don't want to call them concerns, because every speaker has placement likes and dislikes, but for the right person in the right setup, these are maybe going to be answered a prayer. But for someone else that's like, hey, like for example, some people were asking, and we'll get to this question later, some people were asking like, hey, what is a good speaker if I'm never able to turn it up past 70 dB in room? And it's like, well, this wouldn't be that speaker. It doesn't take anything away from the clarity. It's just, that's not maybe its intended purpose, because it's been designed to the hilt to be able to play at truly reference volumes with virtually no distortion, and that is to its credit. But some people may not be able to tax the speaker to appreciate all of those things, in which case maybe it's not the right speaker for them. So anyway, like I said, we're going to touch upon all of that throughout the show, I'm sure. But let's get to our first question from Alan Dawson. Does the Sony AN1000 do a good Phantom center? Thoughts on Phantom in small room home theater 12x12 with bookshelves? Phantom center, in my opinion, I know there's varying opinions on this, but the Phantom center really does come down more to the speaker than, say, the amplifier. Amplifiers don't really have a way of making the soundstage different, but if a speaker's dispersion characteristics set up in relation to the room and your seating position is dialed in and the speaker's capable of good imaging, then it should have a strong center image or Phantom center. And so long as the AN1000 is able to power whatever speaker you have correctly without distortion and all of those things, then yes, you should have a terrific Phantom center. But would you necessarily, all things being equal, take an A1000 and an equally priced, spec'd, lower cost Denon, and again, all things being equal, not applying different room corrections, but all things being equal, necessarily have a better center image with a Denon versus the Sony? That's up for some debate. And I tend to fall on the side of probably not, provided both products are powering the speaker correctly. Thoughts on Phantom center in a small room? I love a Phantom center. More often than not, even when we're rocking a full surround sound, I don't put a center in, just because I know where the speakers need to go in our room in order to dial that in and have a center image that is center speaker-like. So yeah, it's not, I love the Phantom center idea. I know I might be on an island among some home theater enthusiasts, but I prefer it. Gerard, currently have Canta 3s powered by Emotiva XPA2. I'm looking for a different sound profile, something that's not so front facing. What would be a couple of different speaker or amp options? Front facing, so I'm assuming that you are referring to the sound being a little bit forward, more in your face. Before you start shopping for new stuff, I have to ask, and you're free to comment, and maybe Kristi can see it in the comments. I have to ask, have you tried experimenting with the setup, the placement, so on and so forth? You may find that having the speakers pointed straight ahead as opposed to toed in, if you're towing them in, that may solve your problem. You may also find that pushing them back closer to boundaries, pulling them forward away from boundaries may also change their tonality a little bit. Just something to think about if you haven't thought about that already. As for amplification, potentially acting as a type of, call it tone control over Emotiva, you may find that Audiolab has a slightly different sound, maybe not one that is as aggressive. Cambridge Audio could come across to some people as perhaps a little softer, rounder around the edges, maybe not so, I don't want to say precise or exacting, but just may have a different vibe. So that's going to be more on your comparable budget end. Both of those products would have the requisite power to drive the focals properly. Of course, if you go up market, there are things like Yamaha. There are older to newer Macintosh products that historically have been known to be a little bit smoother. But I would experiment with your setup and your placement and really make sure that it's nothing that can't be corrected for free before you go crazy spending money.
It looks like Gerard left another comment in the chat box, and they say, example, listened to 802 D4s, and even though they were set up stereo, it sounded like, sorry, my chat box moved. It sounded like it was coming from all around you.
Okay, so the B&W's dispersion, in my experience, and when set up correctly, is pretty holographic. And so you might be reacting differently to dispersion characteristics as well as tuning and voicing of a loudspeaker. I mean, B&W is neutral in spots, but in other spots it's not. And when you mix that with a pretty interesting dispersion pattern, it creates for a really different sensation. And Focal's just not going to be voiced like that per se, because you are talking about two different kind of approaches to loudspeaker design, what the designers are trying to do. And if that's the case, then yeah, maybe you then are trying to chase a different sound, in which case, sky's the limit, really. So if front-facing doesn't mean forward and it means more spacious, holographic, three-dimensional, then you could look at a B&W. You could, let's see, you could look at something like a Source Point has some pretty nice cohesive soundstage depth and width and things like that. A little bit finicky on setup to get it just dialed in just right, but still really good. Yeah, there's a lot of options, Okay, let's go to Todd. Writes, hey Andrew, do you know if the JBL L26s are any good? If so, do you have any budget amp suggestions? The L26s I have not heard. Personally, I don't know if they're good or bad. I would love to say that historically I don't worry about JBL, but their last line of speakers I did not like at all. So I have to temper my global recommendation that I think they're always pretty decent. So yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard them, and therefore I can't really give you an amp recommendation, and I apologize for that. Scott Woodford, happy Friday. Was just listening to my favorite band, Electric Callboy. I hope you guys are doing well. Well, thank you.
Hello.
Clem, happy Friday, you two. We'll have my questions in a bit. So he preempted questions with a question, Clem. You're funny.
You are funny.
All right. Alan writes, what 3 small identical budget bookshelf speakers for an LCR setup? 12 by 9. Right now, my favorite, quote, budget bookshelf speaker is the ELAC Debut 3.0. It's great. There's a big one and a smaller one. You might be able to get away with the smaller one. I don't know if that's the 53 or the 63. I can't keep it's BK 53 or BK.
The 53 is the smaller, the 63 is the bigger.
Either
6
one
inch, I believe.
Yeah, either one of those are going to be at well under $500 for the pair, no matter which one you pick. That's like my go-to budget recommendation at this time. If you want to step things up to maybe around the $700-800 a pair mark, I'm really liking the SVS Nanos. And a Nano in the center also works really well as a center. Those are kind of my 2 sub-$1,000 options right now, and you could easily outfit a small room with 3, 5, or however many of those you wanted. They don't take up a lot of room. But if you want deep bass, know that you may also have to budget and invest in a subwoofer. But those would be my picks at this juncture. Sir Holmes, I hear that speakers that range from $400 to $1,500 sound pretty close, 15% difference. The next step is $2,000. Is this true? I'm looking for my first bookshelf. It's not necessarily a hard and fast rule. In fact, I don't know if I would even go so far as to say it is a rule. I know that that's a very popular way of looking at it, and there's going to be examples that prove your point, and there's going to be examples that fly in the face of it. It's just going to vary. So if you're looking for your first pair of bookshelf speakers, you've never done this before, you've never gotten into it, There's a real chance maybe you don't know what kind of sound you prefer just yet. Going back to Alan's question just a second ago, maybe consider starting with a really solid $450 a pair ELAC Debut 3, BK63. It's a nice neutral speaker, plays well with a variety of different sources and amps and musical genres. And that'll let you get your feet wet without going completely broke, chasing something that maybe the ELAC will be enough for you. We showed in our review of the ELAC Debut 3.0 that, yes, objectively and on paper, there were more than a few aspects of its performance that were comparable to speakers that were running $800 a pair, and in some instances upwards of $1,100 a pair. Does that make the ELACs as good or better than those speakers? Not necessarily, but it does show you the potential value for money that the ELACs represent and why they ultimately won, our unofficial bookshelf budget speaker of the year. So I hesitate to say that $400 to $1,500 is all the same. I don't like language like that because I think it stunts people's conversation. I think it creates these kind of unfair sort of situations, and it stifles people's exploration and creativity and whatever journey you're on for yourself. But since you're looking at your first pair of bookshelf speakers, I do recommend starting with something like an ELAC Debut 3.0. Vadim writes, okay, we need some insight on what's coming to the channel soon that's not audio video related. Give us some teasers. Y'all are amazing. Hope this week got cut off. Hope this week and Friday have been awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Vadim.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we have some more room videos for you all in the series that we started this past month. We have part 2 of that scheduled coming up here next month. Obviously, when the weather warms up, hopefully we'll take the show outside and do some stuff with some outdoor entertaining. Other than that, that's all I can say for now. That is all I can say for now. So, stuff's happening.
There's a lot of things that we would love to try, to do, explore different
Yeah.
genres, not maybe necessarily audio. Mm-hmm. We just have to take the plunge and.
Yeah, we have to take the plunge, and we also have to. Some of the stuff we would do is also a little bit seasonal, and so like right now, it's not a super awesome time to do some of those things. And then there's been obviously some really, really bad things going on around the country with weather and fires and destruction and stuff like that. And so we're just trying to be aware of all of those things, and put some of those plans have got to be put on hold a little bit due to circumstances outside of our control. But for the most part, yes, we just have to kind of take the plunge and go for it. Let's see. Where was I? Here we go. Alan Brown. I'm curious, when you're seriously auditioning audio gear, do you listen with your eyes closed? I mean, sometimes. Sometimes I do. I wouldn't say that I do it all of the time. But sometimes if I'm finding that is my perception of the loudspeaker's positioning affecting my opinion of its dispersion and my sensation of its dispersion, its imaging, its center fill, things like that, then yeah, I'll close my eyes. And then I'll just, play a track or two with my eyes closed and see if any oral pictures change while I do that. But I wouldn't say that I make it a point necessarily to make sure that I'm, like those people you see at audio shows where everyone's just like, are they asleep? Are they dead? What are they doing? I don't necessarily do that. J. Lauren Smith. Oh, here's a nice question maybe for you. Oh. Radiant 6.2 or Source Point 8?
Oh my goodness. Unfortunately, we didn't have the Source Point 8s in for We reviewed those so long ago. We
Right.
obviously, well, I don't know if it's obvious to everybody, but we sent them back following that review. So I haven't heard them side by side. I loved the Source Point 8s. I thought they were fantastic. I would probably choose those over the Radiance simply because I think that, just because I prefer the look of them. I think the Source Point 8 had more bass, a little bit more bass than the Radiance. But, to give you a definitive answer, I really, really can't say. I think, well, what else? The only other thing I can tell you is that the Source Point 8s will be an easier speaker to drive. So just when you think about all of those things, to me, it makes the Source Point 8 the
Better value.
easier speaker to choose if you don't want to fuss with all the other stuff. Hopefully that helps answer your question.
I would choose the Source Point 8s.
You would?
I would. That was a phenomenal speaker. It was very good. What 2025 TVs are you most excited about? I want a video wall. I want a mini LED video wall. I want to play with all of the new. I know Hisense has some, quote, more economically friendly. That should be in the world's largest air quotes, because I think it's still like 30 grand. But considering that a year ago, these same types of televisions were 70 grand to start, it's pretty exciting that we might be just 2 or 3 years away from, video wall type tech being in that sub 10K category. Because, look at it. 2 years ago when we did our first 98-inch television on this channel, it was about like 7 or 8 grand. And at the time, we were floored because it was like, you don't understand, these TVs less than a decade ago were $100,000. And now, like TCL or whatever, busted the $10,000 price point for a 98-inch. And now you can get a 98-inch for $1,900 in 2 or 3 years. So video walls are coming. And, can't wait. Can't wait. That's what I'm excited for. I want to play with one of those. Steve writes, hey, Andrew and Kristi. So what is on your latest top 5 speaker list under 20K? Under 20K, top 5.
That's a lot to spend. I still think this SVS Titans
They would be on mine.
are some of my favorite speakers.
Yeah, they're fun.
Under 20.
Under 20.
I would say also still a big fan of the A9 from Bang & Olufsen.
Bang & Olufsen.
Under 20.
I have one I'd put on the list.
La Scala?
Yes, La Scala is, 12 or 13?
I think it's up to 14.
14? Okay,
remember.
La Scala would be on there. 805 D4s, B&W, bookshelves.
805D4.
The black ones.
Oh, yeah.
At $8,500 a pair.
I really wish we had held on to those.
Yeah, we should have just bought them.
We know we returned them because we're like, do we really need these?
Yeah.
They're so expensive. We don't want everybody to get upset. We're showing something expensive. Those are the conversations Andrew and I have when we decide whether or not we, what we're going to do or keep, or ask for an extended loan or whatever.
We extended the loan for the year, but we should have just bought those because I really like them. I really do. So that was 4. I don't know. Your Concept 50s.
Oh, yeah. Those are so good. We don't get to listen to them enough.
As much, yeah.
If it was like 4 years ago, the Focal, what were they called? The Focal Diablo Evo
Utopia Color Evos.
Whatever.
Those are over 20 grand.
I know, but at the time.
4 years ago,
At the time when we reviewed them, they were, I think, 14 or 16.
Yeah, they were phenomenal.
Still some of the best speakers I've ever heard.
Bang & Olufsen BLab 28s. They're under 20, and there's an awful lot of speaker there. The looks may not be for everybody.
They're not.
Their looks may not be for everybody, but there's a lot of speaker there with a lot of possibility. So there's some, I think we gave you 6, Steve.
Hopefully that's a good answer.
Demand. Do you say demand?
I would say demand.
Demand.
Demand 777.
What's easier to sell on the used market? 2 monoblocks or a stereo amp? I'll be buying one or the other new and trying to figure out an exit plan if I wanted to sell it later. I think they're probably equally difficult and appealing to pretty much the same person, especially when you start getting into the upper echelons. While there will always be a client or a customer for something with some name recognition, some pedigree and things like that, you have to understand in a world where we live in increasingly disposable times, there's just a smaller and smaller group of people that may want to invest in the long term. And so I think you're probably facing an equal level of challenge. Not impossible, totally doable, but still, I think the market is probably the same regardless. Clem writes, here's Clem's first question of the day, guys. Took a flyer on the Blue Sound Node icon and going to try running the Dirac tonight with the UMic 1. Do I have to do this on my laptop or can I run this on my iPad? I have no idea. I don't know because I do not have a Blue Sound Node icon, number one. I have no idea what updates have been done to the Blue Sound ecosystem with respect to Dirac. The last Lenbrook product that I had that had Dirac in it was the M33 from NAD, which obviously used Blue Sound, and that needed a laptop. But that was 2 years ago, 3 years ago now.
Yeah, I reached out to...
I don't know.
I reached out to someone at, was it Dolly? Who had the soundbar? The soundbar, was that Dyne Audio?
That's
the
Dyne
new
Audio.
There was a new soundbar that just was announced.
Yeah, that's Dyne Audio.
And they're under the Lenbrook umbrella.
Dyne Audio is not Lenbrook.
I thought they were.
No. What does that have to do with the Blue Sound Node icon?
I thought they were a Lenbrook product.
Dyne Audio is its own thing.
Well, is that who did the...
The brand new soundbar that was shown at CES is Dyne Audio.
Oh, maybe that's why. Maybe that's why they haven't gotten back to me, because I said I mentioned Lenbrook. Anyway.
But back to Clem's question. I don't know where we were going with that, but I honestly, if they say you can run it on your iPad, if they say you can, definitely give that a shot. But I can't say if they're telling the truth or not, because I haven't had that experience. Tom writes, I have an old pair of Martin Logan Aeon I speakers that I adore, but no longer have the space to set them up properly. Worth hanging on to or obsolete? Look, I'm a huge Martin Logan electrostatic hybrid speaker fan. You know, you guys, if you watch me or you've been following me for any length of time, you know those speakers near and dear. But there is a fatal flaw with electrostatic loudspeakers, especially the older ones, and that is over time, they just deteriorate. They just do, and they deteriorate differently than cone and dome, speakers. And while Martin Logan has historically an absolute stellar reputation for, servicing and keeping these products up to date, there are certain limitations of the designs that may or may not be able to be serviced as we continue to march ever forward. And so in this instance, if you love them, but you're not listening to them, and you don't think that you're ever really going to listen to them, I don't know if I would invest anything more into them, as it can get quite costly to keep these speakers up and maintained. In which case, maybe there is a collector out there, maybe there is an audiophile out there that would be a better fit for these. And while you may only get a couple of $100 for them, depending on their condition and how well they're working. I know that you say you have the Aeon I, which was the last generation of the Aeon. We're still talking about a 20-plus-year-old speaker that, like I said, just wears out. Whether you play them or not, they just wear out over time. because of that electrostatic film. So, yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that wishes I still had like my CLS2Zs so much because I love those speakers, and I've had opportunities in the last couple of years to pick up pairs, but they haven't been in good nick, and the cost to, you know, refurbish them is just, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. So just kind of keep that in mind. Tom Havoc. Good morning, Kristi and Andrew. What is your preference for an amp, whether a budget or high-end system? Is it A, B, Class D, better or worse than the other? I mean, I still tend to lean a little bit Class A or Class AB. But I will admit there have been a couple of instances where Class D has completely held its own, been every bit as good as some of our favorite Class AB amps. So it really just comes down to its implementation. I don't think we live in an era anymore where, like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was like, I can tell this is Class D, you know? Whereas today, I think if people know what they're doing and they do it right, like, a good amp's a good amp.
I think that you're probably, if you're buying an AB amp, I think that the likelihood that it will perform and sound good, you know, or sound to your liking is probably less of a risk than what you might, you know, you might have to go through a couple of Class D amps to get to something that you really like. I think AB is a little bit more reliable in that,
Yeah.
whatever. I don't know what I'm saying. I didn't sleep last night, guys. Hopefully you can interpret my just stammering around here. I agree with you. Like, we've had a lot of Class D amps that we've really enjoyed. For example, the Marantz M1 is a great Class D amp, minus the...
Don't run the current firmware update.
Yeah, minus the problems the firmware has created with a hiss. We still haven't gotten anything back really actionable yet from Marantz, but hopefully we may have some
news on that.
Some news, like maybe how to troubleshoot it. But and then one other amp I recall really loving, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's a Class D, is the Technics. Don't they use a Class D?
Yeah, it's their own kind of version of it. Yeah, but it is SUG 700, the R1000, the SX. I mean, they're all variations of the same tech.
Those are really great. So.
Yeah, it's just how it's implemented. Thank you. I don't see a question here from Shabruin.
Oh, hold on. I think maybe they left something. What can we do without taking down drywall? Like newer indecibel modular panels, or I don't know what the last part.
What can we do without taking down drywall?
Yeah, I'm scrolling up to see if there was another question before that. Yeah, I don't know. This is why it's important to make sure you actually comment in the chat box, because otherwise it's very difficult for us to know what your question is.
If they can further explain, keep an eye out.
I will do my best to catch it.
Okay. Sean became a member. Well, thank you, Sean. Appreciate that. Wirehead writes, recently heard the Focal Aria Evo floor standing speakers and Michi amp. Came home to my, quote, petty B&W 706s. How do you guys deal with this? FOMO is bad. I mean, I will say that we are incredibly fortunate to have the job that we have, but also the job that we have and the schedule that we have to maintain and the rigorous way that we have to stick to that schedule in evaluating products makes it exceedingly difficult for me to dwell too hard on something. And I don't mean dwell as in like I don't give things enough time, but I mean we're exposed to so much, and like I said, we have a very strict kind of how we conduct things and do things that FOMO isn't allowed to really build up. And it's very rare for something that comes along and takes our regimented approach to stuff and completely upends it, which is how you end up with videos like our La Scala video or like the Bang & Olufsen BioLab 90, where you're just like, okay, this is a completely different experience. I wasn't ready for this, because most things, even when they're excellent, kind of still slot into, how typical evaluations go. So I haven't had that quote consumer experience where it's like I'm getting tastes of something superlative every once in a while that's allowed to percolate and boil up inside me. So I don't know the best way to combat that when you've had that experience, when you've had that La Scala experience, when you've had that BioLab 90 experience, and then you go home to something else. Suffice to say that we just experienced it going from the 90 to the Clarity 6.2, where you're just like,
The one question I have, Wirehead, is how long did you wait before you started listening to your system again? After you had this experience with the arias? If you turned them on like right away and began listening, I could see why you might, that could increase your FOMO. Perhaps next time, give yourself a few days if you can, maybe even a week. I don't know if that's possible. Before you start listening to your system again, give yourself time to forget your experience. Because auditory memory is kind of tricky.
Well, and it's super short, and you're now basing it on what the sensation or the emotional feeling of the rest of your body's reaction, and not necessarily what you heard. It's very tricky. It's very tricky. White Crow says, question to both of you. Have you ever had a speaker or piece of audio equipment that you loved the looks and performance of so much that you would touch it or even hug it on a regular basis? I don't know if I've never hugged a speaker.
Oh, okay.
I've never hugged a speaker.
No.
There's been some times.
As our Italian wedding photographer said, no.
No. I don't know.
No.
I don't feel the need to necessarily touch or interact with, unless, of course, like, for example, like the La Scalas, like that walnut wood veneer that it had, like, yeah, I would wipe it down, and keep it clean and everything and oil it and stuff. But don't have that kind of level of infatuation, I think. And I know that you're probably tongue-in-cheek here, and I can appreciate that, but no, I don't think I've ever hugged a speaker, unless I was picking it up and had to move it, in which case, yeah, I usually will hug and swear. Son of a...
King EPK says, you didn't hug the 90s on the way out the door? The disrespect.
No, when the 90s were going out the door, I had kind of... You remember those Disney Sunday matinee movies, where the kids find the wild animal when it's little and they grow up with it and all of that, but then they realize, like, the bear, the wolf, the cheetah, whatever, that has to go be with its kind and be back in the wild. And there's always that tearful scene at the end when they're like throwing rocks at its feet going, go on, get out of here. I don't love you anymore. In my head, I was just kind of like, I got work to do as the installers came and took them away. And I was like, I didn't allow myself to really pay that close attention, because I'm like, gotta keep working, So anyway.
Philip Scrant says, I do occasionally pat my Vienna acoustic speakers when I walk by.
Oh, well, Vienna acoustic speakers are pretty. That's understandable. You know what? I will say this. When we had like all of the Sonus Faber Lumina speakers in-house, we had the bookshelves all the way up to the towers. This was a couple years ago. the leather wrap on those speakers, I did find myself occasionally like just being like, man, that's nice. I like that. I like that leather wrap. You know, and I kind of touch it every once in a while. But that's probably as far as I've gone. DeWitt says, just picked up a pair of new Kef Concerto Meta bookshelves at 85 dB, 4 ohm, and a reputation for being laid back. Would you think the Crown XLS might be a good pairing? The Crown XLS will drive them. No problems. No problems. And if you adjust the level, gain, whatever you want to call the knobs on the front, back about 3 clicks from full, that should eliminate the heightened noise floor on the Crown, so you don't hear excessive hiss from the tweeters at any sort of distance. And if you do that, like, yeah, you're going to have a very neutral, just power for days, and it'll work. It will work, and shouldn't make those speakers aggressive at all. So, Ian, I think that's Ian, yeah. I'm currently using Klipsch RP 8000F2s, considering upgrade to Klipsch RF73s or Martin Logan XTF100. Would I notice any significant difference using a 10-inch sub and a Yamaha AS1100? Can't comment on the RF73s, never heard them, have no idea. I would like to think or hope there would be an upgrade, an improvement in sound quality in some way, shape, or form over the 8000F, but I don't want to speculate as to what that is. Martin Logan XTF100. It's probably going to feel like a bigger, slightly more grounded, slightly more refined 8000F Mark II with the Logans. Similar, could have similar tendencies, could have similar vibes, could have a similar listening sensation, but just a little bit more refined. You might find that the bass is a little bit more composed, less immediate hit with a bit more weight on it. But since you're using a sub, you might be able to cross that sub over lower now. I don't know. Would I notice a significant difference? I would like to say that you will notice a difference. The word significant is what gives me pause, because that's going to be different for everybody. But again, I can't comment on the RF73. Never heard that speaker in any form. It jumped on me. No. Any love for Canadian brands like Mirage Energy Speaker? I grew up with my dad's system, and I have my own set today, Mirage Omni 550s. I loved Energy speakers when they were far more widely distributed in the US in the late 90s, early 2000s. I thought Energy made some really compelling products. Mirage, again, they were far more widely distributed in the 90s and early 2000s. But admittedly, I have not kept up with them since they sort of have pulled back. I know at one point they were owned by the Klipsch Group, if you will, or Vox, or whoever's name they want to go by today. But I don't believe that to be the case anymore. I think they sold Energy a couple of years ago. So yeah, I thought they were compelling back in the day, but I have no current modern experience with them. Okay, you're probably going to have to help me out with this one. Sean Catfish Johnson super chatted us, and I want to say thank you for your generosity, but there's no question here.
Cannot help you. I'm sorry.
Now, Marcus Hickman also super chatted, and I can see that there is a nested comment.
That is me saying, what's your question?
Okay, all right.
To my knowledge, I have not gotten a reply.
Well, Sean, the Catfish Johnson, and Marcus Hickman, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Willful Agency became a member, and Dwayne just gifted.
Yeah, Dwayne's the man.
Dwayne is the man. Julian, hey guys, did you ever come to a conclusion when comparing the 7000 ES Sony receiver to the 5000 ES? Is the 7000 still your reference?
Yes.
7000 is still one of our reference receivers at that higher end. The 5000 is identical to it in every way, shape, and form, just fewer channels. So if you can get by with what the 5000 offers you, there is no performance change difference, quote, benefit in terms of features that I used on a daily basis with the 7000 over the 5. Now, obviously the 7000 having more channels of amplification and a little bit more power per channel opens some things up for some creativity and some bigger speaker array or speaker layouts. But if you don't need that, the 5000 was every bit the 7000's equal in day-to-day livability, adjustability, and ultimate performance on the speakers we used. Triple X writes, review of the new Dayton Classic speaker line. There's nothing in the works. I would have to Google that, to be honest. Honestly, I don't know what speaker line you're referring to. So I'd have to Google it. So obviously, no, there's nothing on the plan or the schedule as of right now. Sean writes, hoping for your guidance. Hopefully this is the right forum. I'm considering the Marantz M1 and trying to figure out speakers. Would it pair well with the Martin Logan XT-F 100, or would you suggest a bookshelf sub combo? Look, the Marantz M1, in our experience, has had little to no trouble driving damn near anything, which is shocking and kind of to its credit. The only reason why I, right now, have to say, guys, I love the M1, you know we do, but there does appear to be something that happened with the latest firmware update. So if you know you have the patience to work through that, I still recommend it. But if you're like, whoa, hold on, what? Maybe if you can wait, let's wait and see what the fix is. Because there does appear to be a newfound noise issue that did not exist, 4 weeks ago, let alone when we reviewed it. And we are trying to get to the bottom of that. That caveat out of the way. The M1 in our home has not seemed to have any issues driving anything, including our Titans, which are a 4-ohm speaker that can be a complex load. Would it pair well with the Martin Logan XT-F 100s? Unfortunately, I can't give you a definitive yes or no on that because when we had the XT-F 100s, we did not have the M1 and vice versa. So I wasn't able to actually do that pairing myself. But knowing that it does really well on the Titans gives me confidence that you should be okay with the Martin Logans. Would you suggest a bookshelf sub combo? The one thing that I will say that I'm not the biggest fan of is while the M1 has bass management, crossover settings and all of that, I wish it had more. So if I were to pair the M1 with a subwoofer, I would probably choose something from SVS or similar where they have the ability to do more equalization inside their app, inside the subwoofer itself, and then connect it to the M1. As for other bookshelves to use, the sky's the limit on that. You can put any bookshelf that I can think of off the top of my head to the M1 and probably be okay. So, hope that helps you. C Booty. I don't think I've ever heard you review a dealer-provided piece of gear as opposed to a manufacturer distributor. Deliberate decision, I assume. Curious as to why. We have done a few reviews where a dealer has provided us with a piece of gear and then we got it, reviewed it, and sent it back to the dealer. It's been a minute. Time. It's been a minute. It's not anything personal. It really isn't. There's no kind of conspiracy here. It's just sort of like if we don't have to, or we can go straight to the source, that's always kind of easier. Every dealer and how dealers operate, depending on the brand, can be wildly different. I know it's quite popular in our niche, if you will, that there are certain larger dealers that supply product to creators. And that's fine, whatever. That's just not, it's not really how we do anything. That's not how we do it. But regardless, it doesn't, whether we get it from a dealer, whether we get it from the manufacturer, distributor, whatever it is, doesn't change anything for us. And all the people who send gear in for evaluation know that. It's literally in writing when we do our loan agreements. It's like, that you have no say in this. You don't get to see it beforehand and all of that. So it's just, if it's easier to go directly to the source, we just take the path of least resistance.
I also think that as dealers have become more, they act more as review channels.
Well, that's certain retailers, yeah.
Retailers.
Certain retailers.
I guess, do you consider a dealer and a retailer the same?
I mean, I do. King, we're going to get to you in just a second. I just don't want to confuse people. I think dealers and retailers, yes, technically are the same, but I do think that there is a distinction that when people refer to HiFi dealers, there's still this kind of, it's a smaller shop, maybe privately owned, 1 or 2, maybe 3 sound rooms, whereas like a retailer is like, multiple showrooms, something maybe elevated from a Best Buy, but not quite a personal one-on-one kind of touch. I don't know. I think every dealer can be a retailer, but not every retailer is a dealer, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh no.
What happened?
My YouTube crashed. So you guys have to give me a second here because I actually have to relaunch my chat box. This is so much fun.
Mine crashed earlier, like at the very beginning.
Yeah.
But since then, it's been pretty decent, which I'm happy about because typically it crashes about 4 or 5 times in the middle of a stream.
Just give me a second, guys. I'll be right with you here in a second.
Oh yeah, you went black.
Yeah. All right, I should be back.
You're back.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Isn't live fun? Okay. King, I said we would get back to you, and here we are. Thank you, Kristi. EPK is pronounced epic. You can leave the king out. That's for my enemies.
Love it.
There you go. Adam writes, any advice for surrounds placement in an open concept living room, leaning towards a setup similar to yours, 20 by 20 by 10, no back or left wall, must pass the wife check and contend with 2 feral kids. I mean, I think in that instance, especially if you don't have walls in ceilings or a speaker mounted using a bracket to your ceiling is going to be the best, most unobtrusive solution. You don't have to worry about anyone knocking into it. Don't have to, and you at 10-foot ceilings, unless you've got a couple NBA players coming over, you're probably going to be pretty good. In ceilings, even less obtrusive than a speaker being mounted. And you can do some amazing things with in-ceiling speakers, so I wouldn't hesitate at all in going that route, and that would be my recommendation, given your parameters. Marantz 8801 digital section died, but the analog is still 100%. Is it still worthwhile to utilize the AV8801 for analog and just pick up a C70 as a processor, or consider something else? Oh boy. I don't know. Like, all of the digital went out? So the 8801 I'm not intimately familiar with. I'd have to Google it, look it up, all the specs and stuff like that. But it sounds like C70 as a processor. I think you might be better off just getting something that works through and through instead of creating a Franken rig. That's just my 2 cents. I know it's probably not popular. I'm sure. Sorry, guys. But yeah, I think that it might be, I just go the path of least resistance, and I don't want to spend anyone's money needlessly, but if it's not functioning the way that it should, and there's no possibility of repairing it, I would rather have a newer receiver or a receiver that's just going to work. That would be my personal thoughts on it. Clem, so Room Logistics altered my plan and canceled the Michi gear order and ordered a Macintosh MA352. Wondering your experience with tube rolling and if it was worthwhile. Not in a hurry to try, for what it's worth. When I was bigger into tube electronics, now specifically I'm not talking about Macintosh, but when I had like a big deckware system, which is all single-ended triode tubes and tube preamps, when I had my Hovland, what was it, HP 100, I had some audio research stuff back in the day. Like I get deep in the tube rolling. And I have to say, it's not that they're...
What is tube rolling?
So when tube products come from the factory with their factory tubes, they're stock tubes. Mm-hmm. Inevitably, there are people out there in the space and in the hobby on the whole that are like, well, instead of this brand's KT88 or 6919 input tube or rectifier tube, instead of using those, you should go with this brand, or you need to get...
Just to be clear, you're talking about the glass bulb looking...
Yes, the tubes, yeah.
The tubes, okay.
And so different brands, different companies, different countries have made tubes throughout the years. And so there's different feelings and vibes that people believe, and sometimes it's true that they believe that you get from changing the input tube from the stock to something else. And then you get into elements of the tube business where it's like, hey, if you can get your hands on like old Russian new stock tubes from like the 50s where they've never been used.
Oh, you mean dead stock?
Dead stock, NOS, new old stock, that kind of thing. Uh-huh. Those become very valuable to people in that genre, and that's fine. I remember when I had my deckware rig, and I had deckware tube preamp, I had deckware Zen monoblocks, all tube based. I probably spent thousands on different tubes from different countries and different eras, and I don't know if there was always a difference, always a appreciable change. There were definitely some, but some of those were like, well, they were older tubes. Were they failing? Were they bad? Because then you get into like, well, then you have to buy a tube tester and make sure. And it all got to be quite a bit. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I went back to the recommended tubes that Deckware packaged with their products, and I just left well enough alone. I did. So my experience with tube rolling is it was a really great way in my early poorer days that I probably needlessly spent money in the hopes of turning what was already a really great product into something even more great with varying success, if not more outright failure than success.
Hey, do you want to grab one of the questions?
Sure.
From the other video?
Yeah, let's go to question 2. Brian Ruby wrote on our last video, I'm not really understanding what the dual passive radiators are actually doing if they're not delivering the deep bass one expects. If you don't want to go with the subwoofer, is the key here to have a much more powerful amplifier than you used in the review? If not, these speakers don't seem to be delivering any more bass than speakers without passive radiators? And that's a great question. And I think one of the misnomers is that somehow passive radiators are different than, say, ported speakers or a port in a speaker. And they're not. It's just a different way of arriving at the same, quote, conclusion. Passive radiators do the same job as a port. Now, sometimes when implemented, they can allow you to reach the same levels as a ported speaker, potentially in a smaller space, but that's not even always the case. It's just another way of going about it. I think the Clarity's issues with power have way less to do with passive radiators and just more to do with its overall design. And overall design includes the cabinetry to the crossover to the drivers used and just the design. As for its bass response, it's possible that in a smaller room or closer to boundaries, despite Radiant's own recommendations, that you could have eked out a greater sensation of bass weight. The bass that it did have was incredibly fast, like the rest of the speaker. It just, in my opinion, it had all of the texture, the detail in the intonation. It just didn't have all of the weight. Now, so when I augmented the weight part with a subwoofer, it was magical. It was magical while opening up its dynamic capability quite a bit. But as far as like, is this the fault of the passive radiators and would this have been a better speaker ported? I don't think that that's true. I don't, because honestly, passive radiators versus a port are really, really trying to do or accomplish the same thing and can do and accomplish the same things. They just do it a little differently. So that was question 2. And you know what? While we're here, question 3, I think this is a good one. This is the question I was really excited. Brian, your question was good too, by the way. What systems would you recommend for people that rarely reach peaks over 70 dB? Like, what speakers would you recommend for people that rarely reach peaks over 70 dB? Low level listening. I'm going to have a controversial take on this.
I would get probably something from B&W, Bowers & Wilkins.
Okay, a little something with some tipped up treble.
Maybe the KEF R3s. I think the Source Point 8s were really good at lower volume listening, from my recollection. The Q Acoustics Concept 50s, great lower level listening speaker.
Okay.
Yeah, tell me I'm wrong.
No, actually, I don't think that you're wrong at all. My hot take and controversial take, powered speaker. Powered speaker. Go active. Because you'll really be able to kind of hear everything that speaker can do, if done correctly, at every volume, because it's literally being driven exactly how the designer intended, rather than a designer building a terrific speaker, but leaving a lot of things open to chance. And yeah, I think the best overall loudspeaker for all types of listening is probably likely active or powered. Doesn't mean you have to get like one of those smart speakers with built-in Bluetooth or anything like that. You could get something as simple as a JBL Pro 300 series, which is a dumb powered speaker. But that would be a really, really cost-effective way to go for low-level listening. All right, where was I? Oh no. Oh, here we go. G-Papa. Have you listened to any of the Heigl amps? What's your overall opinion? Apologies if this has been covered before. Man, talk about a brand that I would love to hear. Sorry, you're going to hear probably a clang. I would love to hear a Heigl amp, but I have zero experience with them, actually. Zero. So I don't know. It's nothing personal. We've tried to get them on the channel multiple times, and for whatever reason, it's just not something that they want to do. And it's just been one of those products that I can go out and buy and bring to the channel, and I probably will at some point. We've just gotten busy. The few times that I've been like, okay, let's just go buy it and do it. Something's just come up. So no big conspiracy, just haven't heard them and haven't had the opportunity yet, but that'll change.
How much do they charge?
I don't know. They go everywhere from $2,000 to $2,000 to sky's the limit. You know?
Okay.
So.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to buy one and return it.
Yeah, we'll see. Speaking of Canadian brands, this is a new question. Any plans to look at the Heaven 11 Billy Amp Mark III when it comes out? I'm thinking of trying it with my Lintons. Well, I know we did the first one, the Heaven 11. That was one of the very first reviews we did on the channel.
Oh,
the Heaven 11. It was the silver one with the wooden knobs and the 2 tubes sticking out of the top. I mean, there's no plans to do the Mark III. Hell, I didn't know there was going to be a Mark III. But that isn't to say that it's a bad product or that I have anything against it, because I don't. There's just no plans to do it at the moment. So yeah. Man, this guy's going back and forth, man.
Yeah.
Back and forth. How's the stream doing? Stream doing good?
It's okay. Yeah, it crashed again for me.
Okay.
Unironically, just a couple of minutes after I was like, oh, it's been doing pretty
well. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Wirehead is back. 14-week-old pup has decided she likes speaker wire. Ever have this problem? Toddler proofing was easier. Thankfully, no. I have not had this problem with all of the animals that I've ever had in my life. For some reason, they've always been afraid of my stereo.
I had a cat. I remember we had a cat when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But this was way back in the day when they were basically using lamp cord.
Yeah.
For speaker wire, and that cat just used it as her little play toy. But not since. I haven't seen any that as an issue.
No, and I've had multiple dogs throughout my career and multiple different animals. Hell, I had monkeys at one point, and they didn't mess with stereo stuff. Thank the universe, because that would have been bad. It's definitely something that especially very early on in my career when I was reviewing stuff, stuff is on loan for me to review and send back. So yeah, when animals are around, I'm like, God, don't damage it. But knock wood, it hasn't been an issue. How to fix it? I had a dog once that liked baseboards. That was its thing. So bitter apple spray on the baseboard that he really loved to chew for like a couple of weeks, just hitting it every day with bitter apple spray, broke him of that habit. But it was hard. It was hard to break that habit for sure. Let's see. Recently demoed Musical Fidelity M6 power amp, 230 watts per channel, with my Marantz 6015 to help get more out of my 705 S3s. I feel like I'm not getting the full potential of the 705s. The B&Ws can be pigs for power. They like some current. They like some juice. When we did the 700 signatures back in Austin, like when we pulled out the Musical Fidelity M8 XI, that's when we were like, oh, these speakers are good. But I think the first thing we put them on was like a Yamaha 1200, or it might have been the NAD T778. And both Kristi and I were like, where's the beef? Like, what's the big deal? Like, why is everyone losing their mind over these? Depending on your setup, depending on your listening tastes, depending on a lot of factors, sometimes the B&W speakers can take a little extra effort. I would think that your M6 should be fine. If you're saying it wasn't, that would be a surprise to me. But if you're saying that you got to borrow the M6 and now you're wondering if you need to invest in something like that, odds are maybe you do. So Whoa, Brian. Oh, there's a symbol. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Brian, for your generosity. I was so excited for Atmos music, but I'm so disappointed. Well-mixed tracks are rare. What are some of your favorite Atmos songs? Do you think there is a market for Atmos books? Can it be done better? Is Atmos music a fad? I don't think Atmos music is a fad. I don't. I think it's here to stay. I think Atmos in general is here to stay. As with anything, as people are exposed to it and get up to speed and start using it more and more, yeah, you're going to find that things get better. I remember when SACD first came out, or DVD audio, which was not even the first attempt at multi-channel music. You can go all the way back to quadraphonic in the 70s for that. But, admittedly, when DVD audio and SACD came out, there were more crap mixes than good ones. And then they got better, but then people ultimately didn't care about the format, and they both basically died. I know people will debate, like, it's not dead. They're still, okay, fine. So Atmos, I think, has the best chance of sticking around. The thing that people need to remember, one of the, I guess, benefits to Atmos in theory is the scalability of it. And that's why I think it's got longevity, is in theory, it should be able to scale when done correctly from 2 to 3 to 5 to 12 to however many channels, if in the hands of the right, mastering artist or a person. So I think with anything, there's going to be successes and there's going to be failures. And then with time, hopefully there are more successes than failures, because I've noticed that 2 years ago, if you were asking me about Atmos music, yeah, I probably would have said there's nothing I really like. And now I'm increasingly being given things either through Tidal or Apple Music that I'm finding, I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. This is nice. It's not just echoey or putting stuff behind me that doesn't make any sense. As for like, are there specific things? I don't know. Nothing is jumping out at me as like, oh, this is an Atmos mix I don't ever want to lose. But I will say that there's been more often than not Atmos mixes where I'm like, that was nice. That was pretty good. Kyle Smith. I love jazz music, and a U-shaped curve on a speaker is greatly beneficial. Treble for a ride cymbal, bass for obvious reasons. Thoughts on jazz speakers? I don't know if there is such a thing as a jazz speaker per se, but I will say when it comes to my musical tastes, there are a couple of speakers that I do find get me listening to jazz more. And like when we have our Cornwalls installed, I listen to a lot of small ensemble, like Keith Jarrett type stuff. I love piano through the Cornwalls. I love double bass through the Cornwalls. Very basic saxophone through the Cornwalls. Like, yeah, I mean, and there's a little bit of a V-shaped curve to those. So maybe you're onto something, Kyle, but I don't know if there is such a thing as a quote jazz speaker, but there are speakers that I like listening to jazz on. So maybe you are onto something. Oh boy. Okay. Dwayne. Happy Friday, great to be with you. I run the PT1 Basics A2 with the ELAC Debut 3. I use the preamp amp because I had them in storage. Would I get appreciable difference? Would I get an appreciable difference with the pairings in your review? No, I mean, it sounds like you have everything the ELAC Debut 3s are going to require. Not to say that there won't be differences switching out electronics, but honestly, Dwayne, I wouldn't worry about it. I would just enjoy what you have, especially if you think it sounds good. Just enjoy it. You've got a really nice system here. Very nice. There have been a lot of rumors of a possible new flagship for B&O's 100th birthday this year. What could possibly be improved sound-wise over the 90s? Unfortunately, I have no comment on this. What could be improved sound-wise over the 90s? I have no idea. No idea. But there's two ways to think about it, you know? There's two ways to think about it. Do you try and improve upon the 90s, or do you go in a completely different direction? I don't know. But that is...
No comment does not mean it's confirmed.
What's that?
Oh, someone just said no comment means it's confirmed.
That's something for...
Yeah.
I mean, something for... I mean, every 10 years, I don't even think we can take this away from B&O. I mean, anytime you're celebrating a birthday, there's going to be something. It could be as simple as an ad campaign. I don't know. But if I'm B&O, do I always want to be improving upon my last flagship? I mean, you always want to improve on something, but do you always want to just be building the same speaker over and over again? Or in the case of B&O, they seem to just let things be a singular experience for however long, and then they go in a different direction or they try something else. So I don't know what that is. I mean, I would say that there's probably going to be something for an anniversary as big as 100 years, but what it is, I have no idea. Alan Brown, when streaming content, would an Apple TV 4K produce higher quality surround audio compared to streaming off my A95L using the same apps? I know you use an Apple TV, but with the A95L being exceptional at most things, I was curious. It's gonna vary, and this is true. It's going to vary depending on the app, depending on the service, depending on the displays, built-in operating system processing, so on and so forth. Because I've done this test quite a few times where it's like you'll watch it natively through like the Google operating system on the TV, punch over to the same app on an Apple TV, and so on and so forth. And as time has gone by, the delta between streaming services and streamers from a video standpoint has lessened, has shrunk. In the early offing, the delta was pretty wide. But there are some variables, and it does vary. So it's hard for me to say definitively, like, you will just automatically have a better experience doing this, because it can vary. And in some cases, like with Sony products specifically, if you want to take part in the Sony Bravia Core streaming platform, which is Sony's, call it, version of Kaleidoscape, but for Sony products, like, you're only going to watch that natively through Sony displays. Like, Apple TV doesn't let you have that app. In which case, yeah, you are going to get a different experience doing that than an Apple TV. So unfortunately, there's no hard and fast rule. Now, I typically just use the Apple TV for simplicity's sake and all of that, and I don't chase those last couple of bits more often than not, but that isn't to say that they don't exist. Emotiva base A3 specs say 200 watts per channel, 4 ohm, but at 1 kilohertz, but at 8 ohm, it's 140 watts per channel, 20 to 20. Any thoughts on this? No, I don't have any thoughts on that. That is a question that is best suited, if it's something that's bothering you, if it's something that's you want a better, more definitive answer on, I would reach out to them. Maybe the person that you write at support doesn't give you the answer right away, but if you're patient and you're kind, I can imagine that they'll fly that up to Flagpole, and you'll hear from someone in the engineering department, and they'll answer that question. But I don't have any thoughts on it. They do what they do, and that's how they report it. Apology in advance without hearing the other. Are there any reasons you would suggest an SB17 over a JTR RS1? Please don't give me the red tape. I want an aggressive take, if there is one.
What's the red tape?
Okay. I am going to do something here. JTR RS1. I first need to know what it is we're talking about. Okay, I have JTR RS1 over here. Captivator RS1. It is an 18-inch sealed subwoofer with 2400 watt amplifier that has been digitally optimized to the smoothest frequency response and highest possible output. Cool. It is $7,400 each. Okay.
Wait, how much?
$7,400
For one subwoofer?
for one subwoofer. All right. It is a more analog analog affair where we're looking at old school dials and stuff like that. Frequency response is 16 to 157 hertz, plus or minus 2,400 watts, class D, weighs 117 pounds. All things being equal, you want my hot take? I'm sure the JTR Captivator RS1 is a phenomenal subwoofer. I'm sure of it. But I'd rather have two SB17s than one of these. And the reason I say that is on paper, they appear to be somewhat evenly matched. And if they're even if the JTR is 10% better, let's give it the benefit of the doubt. It's 10% better. I'm not spending $7,400 on a subwoofer for that 10%.
Someone just said the RS1 is actually $3,600.
I'm on the JTR website saying Captivator RS1. And it says MSRP $73.98 each. Oh, my apologies. Then they have this manufacturer direct $36.99 each. Okay, I see what they did there. All right, I see what they did there. I still wouldn't get it. That's that for red tape. I still wouldn't get it because honestly, guys.
So it's $100
they're saying
for two?
No, JTR is basically saying that because they're internet direct, if we sold this through a dealer, it'd have to be $7,400. But because we sell it to you directly, it's $3,700.
Oh, give me a break.
Yeah, give me a break.
Give me a break. You're pocketing the...
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay, you're at $3,700 versus $2,500. There's more flexibility. There's more usability. There's more customization. There's more adjustment. There's just more with the SVS that even if the RS1 can go, like I said, 5 or 10% better, which on paper it doesn't appear that it can or that it maybe would, but let's just give it the benefit of the doubt and say that it is 5 or 10% better. Unless you are that guy and an extra grand or $1,300 or whatever is worth that single percentile difference, I just don't see the value here. I just don't. And I've never heard it. I'm going purely off of specs. But when I can dial in a subwoofer from my listening position using my phone or my tablet, and I don't have to get up and reach around and twist a little knob, sit back down, take another measurement, get back up, twist another knob, like that matters to me. And the fact that if the SVS was more expensive than the JTR, I'd be like, well, okay, but I'm getting a lot of convenience. I'm getting a lot of customization. I'm getting a lot of DSP and adjustments. So maybe that's worth something. But we're talking about the product that's actually less expensive, giving you more, while on paper the specs being relatively comparable. So no, I don't think the JTR is a good value. I don't.
But maybe you'll love it.
But someone else is free to feel differently. But Corey, you were kind and generous, and you asked for I want an aggressive take if there is one, and I don't think it was aggressive, but there you go. That's how. If I were in your position, I was a customer shopping for subwoofers. That is how I would look at it. That was my stomach just now. Sean writes, just got Polk R700 to replace Klipsch R28Fs, powered by the RZ50, worth adding a power amp. What sound do you gain first? First set of three-ways, still getting used to it. The Polks definitely can benefit from a separate amplifier. The RZ50 can drive the R700s just fine. We've done it multiple times. If you add a separate amplifier, let's say you do something like a Emotiva Bass X A2. you're probably going to notice just a little better control, firming up of the bass. That's not bass playing deeper per se. That's just the reaction, the quickness, the agility of the bass. Maybe it'll go from feeling a little bit slower, less resolved, mushy to tighten up a little bit. There should be a little bit better instrument separation in the soundstage. Not to say that the soundstage with the RZ50 won't be great on its own, but you may notice more, just little tiny changes in focus and precision, but probably most notably in the lower frequencies. Justin, in your previous life in movies, do you remember having good experiences in the editing room, checking music and mixes, or was that too work focused for enjoyment? Oh no, those were some of my favorite days. I loved post-production so much. I like production, don't get me wrong. I like all facets of creating stuff. Pre-production, I get antsy. I do. I love talking with actors and crew members about like what we're gonna do. Production is fun, but production is like, I know that it's cliche to say, but like production's like going to battle. The thing about production that I love so much is that you're always on your toes. Like you just have to problem solve. And so no 2 days are ever alike. But post-production, where I get to a director is always a spectator in a lot of ways. Like you can always share your ideas and your opinions, and this is what I see, this is what I want, this is what I think this moment is about. But at the end of the day, or for a take or two or three, however long you want to go, I mean, if you're David Fincher, 78 takes later, you are a spectator. And I love that about the creative process, is that I can put in all of my input, but then I have to see what people do with it. And in post-production, like I loved sitting with the editors and watching them work and then seeing how they interpreted the scene and then having those conversations. And the same thing with sound. Like Craig was my sound designer on everything that I've ever done. And it was so much fun describing sounds to him and then watching him make them out of thin air. At one point, I remember we were mixing for a action sequence, and it didn't feel scary enough. It didn't feel intense enough, and there was weapon fire in the sequence. And I remember going like, man, this sounds super realistic. Oh no, guys, no. Shoot.
What happened?
YouTube crashed.
Oh, really?
YouTube crashed. I'm gonna finish my story. Sorry. If you see a black frame, I apologize. I'm getting it fixed. I do not know what's going on with this stuff all of a sudden.
You typically don't see a crash. Which I find strange.
Yeah, this doesn't happen to me often, if at all. Okay. Live stream.
I'm just now seeing the screen go dark.
Okay.
You're back.
I'm back. I apologize, guys, for that. I'm going to get that question back up. Okay, Justin, here we go. So yeah, we were mixing, and I was like, I love the realism of this. I do, and I applauded him, but I'm like, I still need to be afraid. Like I need the audience to viscerally be afraid. And we started laying in animal, like lion sounds and elephant rumble sounds. And what that did was it floored me. It just absolutely floored me. And so moments like that in mixing was always great. And then when it came to laying in the score and the music, like I just loved watching Dominic work. Dominic was my composer, and he's this German German piano player, and just watching him work was amazing. And I was totally a fan. I'm such a fan of the creative process that it's the thing that I miss the most, to be honest with you. It's just being in a room, even like back in my advertising days, you know, just, we were talking about this last night. We were watching a show, Vogue or some little video.
It was Zach Posen's
Day in the Life.
Day in the Life. He's now like the new creative director for
Gap.
The Gap brands, which is Banana Republic, J. Crew.
Yeah, and we were just talking about this last night. Like the days of walking into a room and just seeing walls of imagery, sketches, posters, you know, just seeing everyone's best creative works and knowing that for the next 90 minutes, like you're going to just sit in a room with cool people and talk about cool shit that you made. Like I dug it. And so, yeah, post-production, music mixing and all of that was awesome. Was absolutely awesome. Making me miss it now. Is it worthwhile to get Dirac for my home theater, 6100 5.1 with KEF R3 fronts, or is the embedded Accu EQ just fine? I mean, if the embedded Accu EQ is something that you're currently enjoying and it's working for you, keep using it. Do you have to get Dirac? You don't have to do it. Do I think it's going to be a difference? There's going to be some differences, but that's not to say that you're going to like them. Some people think Dirac, you know, takes some of the body away from stuff. Like, yeah, okay, this tightened up a little bit. This got better focus, but I miss the boom. You know, the boom got too tight. I want more rumble. So some people, you know, it's a negative thing for them, even though it's, quote, better. So I can't say for certain. I prefer it. That's me. I prefer it, but that isn't to say that everyone will. B&O 90s versus MBL 101 Extremes. Have you heard the MBLs? I have heard MBLs. I don't know if I've heard the 101 Extreme, but I have heard MBL. I would choose the BioLab 90s out of just sheer simplicity. I have yet to go and experience an MBL system where the MBL system wasn't the entire focus of the room, from the amplifiers to the preamps to the speakers themselves to the bass modules. Like, it took up a third to a half of the room is just the MBL gear. That isn't to say that it wasn't a superlative experience, that it wasn't amazing. But while I can appreciate it, it's not something that I want for myself. And an MBL system is impressive in so many ways, in so many different ways, but there's no way I would do that for myself. I would go BioLab 90s all day long. And I don't think that I would be missing out. I really don't. Chris writes, thanks for the work you're doing. How are you both holding up? Hoping all is well. Looking back to the beginning, I'm curious, what do you think you might have said or done for each other more to strengthen your bond? As it relates to the channel or as it relates to the work that we do?
Wait, what? Sorry,
She's over here chatting with people in the comments.
Wait, thanks for your work. How are you both doing? Or holding up? Hoping all is going well. Looking back to the curious, what do you think you might have said or done for each other more to strengthen your bond? I mean, I think our bond is pretty freaking good. Being in this business and doing it together has had its challenges. Mm-hmm. You know, I think Andrew and I are both pretty strong-willed people, and sometimes we butt heads a little bit.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I'm not ashamed to say it. It doesn't make our bond or the relationship any better or worse. Like, no, we butt heads. I don't want to say all the time, but we butt heads. We disagree on stuff. Yeah. And it's fine. It's healthy. I would rather disagree, because it makes us better, it makes us stronger in how we deal with stuff. I mean, for me, going back to the beginning, I just couldn't have fathomed. I couldn't have fathomed the stress. I'm not the stress of the work, but like the stress of all of the other things that kind of come with being a bit of a public figure.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree.
I think maybe if I could go back now, I would put other things in place that we do today, but I probably would have done them a lot sooner, you know, in terms of like, we have no comment, we don't interact, we just do not engage, do not get involved unless absolutely necessary. Because as we were figuring things out, as we were growing, and, you know, people were paying attention to us and all of that, like I got involved way too much in stuff that was always going to be outside of my control. You know, so-and-so just thinks you're an idiot and doesn't like you. And it's like, or thinks you're this, thinks you're that. And it's like, well, we're not. And it's like, at the end of the day, you just got to be like, look, I know what we do. I know how we do it. And that's that. I mean, people are going to talk no matter what.
I mean, for me, that's the thing I still struggle with.
Yeah.
Just still dealing with. Sorry, that's Katie. Still dealing with just the rumor mill surrounding our business practices, and I know Andrew and I have both found ourselves offering very detailed explanations to certain creators or brands, even recently, as to how we do our business, how we conduct ourselves, even though we didn't really do anything to warrant having to be the ones to kind of break down so openly, like how we conduct things, like how we do business, because, you know, just solely because, well, they've heard this, they chose to believe it, and then they chose to
disseminate
that publicly to their friends, followers, fans, whatnot.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's really, especially in the last few weeks, that made me feel like, are you kidding me? Like, why do we still have to, you know, defend or explain and give answers to people who've never once given us any, first of all, any respect, or like, you know, there's never like a sharing of their personal business dealings, or, you know, so, okay, so you're demanding to be explained, or for us to explain to you how we work, but then you're not offering any information for yourself. Like, it just feels like a very one-sided relationship, if that makes sense.
And it was always going to be that way, though.
And to me, that is the thing that I'm getting more and more short-tempered about. Like, I'm effing over it. I'm effing over it. You know, I'm tired of having to defend things that we know aren't true, especially when the person that has all the, you know, the loaded accusations, they're operating in the their operations are basically like what we're being accused of, they do.
Yeah.
And it's like the irony.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any. God, Kristi, just spit it out. You're babbling. You know what? Still Brazzy. Kiss my ass. I'm doing the best I can.
Someone really write that?
Yeah, of course they did. You know, it's just, it's not, I'm trying to give you an honest answer, and something I wasn't a question we were prepared to get. I had no idea that question was coming. As Andrew said, I was in the middle of trying to help answer the on Super Chat comments so that, everyone has a chance to have their question answered. But yeah, it's not always easy just telling you succinctly what I'm trying to say. And I'm also trying to be very careful about exactly how I phrase something, because that is important.
Yeah.
But
Chris, thank you so much for
sorry for going off, Chris.
for your question and your well wishes. I do appreciate it.
But Andrew and I, we are good.
Yeah.
And there's no way I could do this without him. And
vice versa.
And I lean on him a lot when I am feeling frustrated, because there are things in life outside the job that we also have to deal with, like anyone does. So I hope that helps answer your question. But the reviewing, like the actual, like true nuts and bolts of the job, that's fairly easy. It's the politics that often surround the hobby that get to be
a lot,
sometimes overwhelming. And I'm sure I know you see it, because if you spend any time on any channel or in forums, I know you see the a little bit of the toxicity.
Yeah.
Anything we're saying shouldn't be a total surprise.
All right. Corey writes, thank you for your previous response. How did the BLab 90s base compare to the SB17? In a large 2-story room, could one SVS leave you wanting more? I mean, I go into that in depth in our BLab 90 review. The 90 managed to pressurize our space more so than even the SB17, which was a shock to me, because the SB17 did a pretty damn good job pressurizing our room, which you guys know is 23 by 20 or 21 by 27 with 10, 11 foot ceilings. That's open on one side. The one SB17 properly placed is more than enough for this space. And so for the BLab 90s to not only do more than that, but then also need me to kind of bring them down a little bit, so as not to like crack our foundation, metaphorically speaking, was quite a shock. In a large 2-story room, could one SVS leave you wanting more? It's all going to come down to the room and the placement and your listening habits. Could you need more than one SB17? Sure, you could. Is it necessarily a requirement? Not necessarily. Havoc, Andrew, will the Emotiva BassX A7 be more power over all channels driven than just using the TX RZ30? Will it make all of the speakers more livelier? I've watched both reviews. In theory, it should, I think, do a little bit better, maybe. It's not something that I've tried, and I haven't tried with every speaker pairing, so it's hard for me to give you the definitive answer that yes, it will. In theory, all channels driven, the BassX A7 should or could do as good or better than all channels driven of any receiver, unless that receiver is advertising an all channels driven number for you that you can then go and verify. Have I felt the need with our RZ30 to augment its power with any of our speakers? Not really. Not really. That isn't to say that I haven't done it and it hasn't benefited, but is it something that as soon as I plug just the RZ30 in, I'm like, oh man, I gotta go get my Emotiva XPA, whatever, BassX? No, it's just different strokes for different folks and different moods. But I just recommend the BassX line. If you want to dabble in power amps, that's why I recommend the BassX line. Is it's like learn for yourself and give yourself that experience without breaking the bank, because they're very, very solid value for money, high performing amplifiers for what they are. Could touch on the need for subs even with tower speakers and discuss brands like Sue, Rhythmic, PSA, asking for a friend. could touch on the need for subs. I mean, as we talked about in our SVS SB17 review, and how we use the SB17 with Titans. Titans are reference speaker at, $3 to $5 grand. That I historically don't think are shy on bass, but adding the subwoofer did change them quite a bit, did open them up. Is someone here? Do you hear that grinding?
I hear a.
Or is it trash day?
I hear a truck noise.
Okay.
But
As for other brands, Sioux Research has historically made look out the other window. Sioux Researches have historically made great subwoofers. Rhythmic, no experience. PSA, I don't know what that is. I'm sorry. I don't know what PSA is. Will we touch on more subs? Jury's still out. If I think there's a sub coming up or something that tickles my fancy, it's always on the table. But specifically, am I chasing any one or two sub brands? Not at the moment. Kristi, I can teach you how to handle internet people. In exchange for super chats, I'll have you 2010 Call of Duty lobbies fearing you in 3 months.
What? 2010 Call of Duty lobbies?
Fearing. Yeah, I think yeah. I've heard stories of what goes on in the headsets when people play Call of Duty or any game online as a group. I've watched my brother do it with Call of Duty, Overwatch, I think Madden. It's It's why I play by myself. I play disconnected. Some 7-year-old's gonna come and dress me down in a headset. It'll just probably ruin my whole day and my self-esteem.
Yeah, I know. I should try to be better about dealing with some of the
We're all
comments.
just human.
But man, like I said earlier, my ability to take a deep breath and not react has that is I'm not doing as well with that anymore. I'm at my, I guess I would say I'm at my limit with bullshit like that.
Yeah.
Somebody, I know you were trying to figure out what PSA was in the previous comment. Some Derek Harrell, I don't know if it was his question or not, but said power sound audio.
Oh.
Maybe it's PS audio. Someone else?
Power sound. I honestly have
Guesses?
I've heard of PS audio, but I've never heard of power sound audio. I have more Googling and homework to do.
Ryan O says PSA has staff that left SVS.
Oh.
IIRC. What is that? IIRC. That's maybe a slang, but I'm not hip to it.
I will look into
IRC
it.
No,
It's not in real life. All right, let's townhouse owners, content for dedicated room, have these crummy shared walls. Neighbors complaining about bass, loudness, stuff falling off their walls. The struggle is real. The struggle is real. Well, you can do your best to isolate subwoofer, decouple it. You may even consider raising it off the floor on some kind of stand or something like that, and then decoupling that. It's obviously going to change a lot of things, but it may keep some of the bass from directly impacting the structure aspect. I will say that while I lived in apartments early in my life and career, I purposely kind of, if I had a subwoofer in or subwoofer as part of a system, I purposely tried to review it during daytime hours. I would disconnect it at night so as not to get noise complaints. But I also just didn't do those types of reviews that often. And then when I moved to a condo that I had in Silver Lake, we had cinder block construction in between, so sound traveling wasn't really an issue. And I unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, I just haven't had to deal with that since then. So I might not be the foremost person to ask, as I haven't really had to get creative with like how to.
Follow-up comment, what can we do before we start tearing down drywall and adding sound deadening materials?
Okay, you might try raising the subwoofer off the ground. Like, I don't know, maybe, do you have a couple of cinder blocks? Put some washing machine puck, something that isolates the cinder blocks from your carpet, your floor, and then put the sub on top of that. I know Nemo had this issue. He and I were talking a couple of weeks ago. He used granite remnants. He went down to like a tile store, or a cabinetry store, kitchen store, and got a hold of like some 24 by 24 inch granite pieces. And he said he like stacked 2 of those and stopped getting noise complaints. It could have come down to the construction of his place at that point in time. It could have been any number of factors, but you might want to try just doing your best to really isolate and decouple that subwoofer from floors, walls, things that are going to be shared with someone else, to start. And then, of course, yeah, you can open stuff up and do that. But you might have to still, even if you open up drywall and put in sound deadening, you do staggered stud installation, double drywall with, a sheet of I forget what the stuff is called, but it goes between when you sandwich your drywall together. Even if you do that, you may still have to rely on some subwoofer decoupling and isolation to make sure that absolutely nothing transfers. The best part of Fridays, just want to say thank you for your amazing work. These videos and live streams make rough days better and my good days great. What are some YouTube finance channels that you watch? Well, I will admit, I got sucked into his name, Caleb Hammer. Although admittedly, while I found myself kind of end of the day watching 1 or 2 of his videos when I first discovered him, and don't at me if you're like, oh God, Caleb's been around forever. I get it. YouTube is massive. I'm still amazed at I find people that have like millions of followers. I'm like, I've never heard of this person. So I did watch quite a bit of his stuff, but lately it seems a little bit more soap opera-y.
It's very Jerry Springer.
Yeah,
in a way. He basically he has guests on who are having financial budgeting trouble. They're often, way upside down.
Usually on cars.
On cars, or they have
or
spending.
Tools.
They have spending habits that are out of control.
Yeah.
And while some of the episodes can be really good, it really depends on how seriously the guest is taking
the
advice that he's offering.
Yeah.
But the more episodes we've watched, the more it seems like that's why I called it kind of Jerry Springer. It seems that they're purposely, maybe it seems I don't know how it's not planned, but the person they have on is just so
out of touch with reality.
Out of touch, they're unrealistic. They don't even seem to care about their situation. And
yeah, I'll just manifest more money.
Yeah, and he often screams at them in frustration, and it's hard to not believe that maybe some of it is an act. I don't know. But then there was the other guy that we've watched a few times who his channel is more like a Twitch stream.
I don't know his name.
I don't know.
Antioch or something like that. I don't know. He's someone new that I've stumbled across. He doesn't just do finance. He does a lot of different kind of live stream react but he's been entertaining. I catch up with Graham Stefan off and on. I know he's doing pretty much like a podcast iced coffee hour at this point now, where that's been really, there's elements of that that's really interesting still to me.
I just started following somebody on Instagram. I think she goes by your rich BFF, and she gives financial advice that's geared towards, I think, younger people. I mean, I don't think it really matters, but it feels practical, like practical advice.
Yeah.
I would give her a follow if you're looking for content.
I'll say this much, whether all of the guests are 100% sincere or real, the one thing I will say that is a constant with the Caleb Hammer guests that hasn't opened my eyes, but I, without having to shout at you or a guest or whatever, maybe taking it to 11, the thing that is the 3 or 4 things that are a consistent obstacle financially that I do think deserve to be called out is, number one, everyone seems to have some type of Klarna, Karma, PayPal payment debt.
Or they've done like a payday type of a loan.
That's it's separate, but like the Klarna stuff, because I know you
where it's
can
like they're financing.
where it's like, hey, you can get this RZ50 today in 4 payments of $299 each. Amazon offers it right there on their site.
I know Crutchfield
does. Best Buy
like
does. Everyone does.
Yeah,
everyone does.
it.
And holy crap, I would have never in a million years. I mean, I knew there's going to be interest to it and all of that. I mean, it's 0 interest if you pay it off. But these people are thousands of dollars in the hole on purchases that we're talking about, like $300, because the juice is running. And the juice is like 40, 50, 70, 80%. Do not click those buttons. Do not click those buttons. So that was an eye-opener. I mean, obviously, as someone who in their early 20s into their, all the way to their early 30s, was absolutely a financial degenerate with automobiles, that would be me. The trouble people are in over automobiles is, oh my God.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane
madness.
Because especially if they bought them during the height of or shortly after the height of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Where there were supposedly shortages of vehicles, and auto dealers were marking, I think they still do this, marking the MSRP of a vehicle up 10, 20%. I mean, shoot, I remember when we still lived in Austin and we were looking to move on from the Stelvio we were driving. We were interested in a Kia
Telluride.
Yeah. And we were speaking with one of their internet salespeople, and they flat out told us if we were not willing to pay an extra at least 10% to not even
not 10%, an extra 10 to 15 grand over sticker. Don't even come down to the dealership. It was 10 to 15 grand.
Okay, sorry,
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I thought it was a percentage point, but you're right. It was $10,000, $15,000 more over sticker. And yeah, they said, don't even bother walking on the showroom floor or on the lot unless you're ready to overpay.
Yeah. And it's just like ridiculous. But yeah, I would say the Klarna, the Karmas, all of those like immediate gratification payments underneath the buy now button when you're doing any kind of online shopping, do not click those. Do not do that to yourself. Don't overpay for cars. Cars, like a lot of even stereo equipment, there's really nothing new from 24 to 2025 except a bigger price. So, and there's always last year's new models that haven't even been driven off that are still on these lots. Like, don't go into debt for this stuff. It's just not worth it. All right. Last week, asked about upgrading my Evo 4. Should ask for bookshelves with very good center image when not sitting in the middle when listening with my wife. Kristi knows from the chat. Thanks, Vincent. Last week I asked about upgrading. So you want a good bookshelf with good center imaging. I mean, the Evos, the Wharfdales are great imaging speakers.
I mean, my response to home cinema was, have you experimented with placement, positioning? Because I know we actually really liked the Evos.
The Evos were great. Other comparable, well-made, great imaging speakers, Q Acoustics. You could look there. Those have a really, really nice dispersion. But it really does, like you said, it comes down to like if you experimented with setup and how much have you tried bringing them in, bringing them out, tilting, toe in and all that. Justin, buying an RZ70 after seeing your review. Important question. What furniture fits this thing? 19-inch depth. Asked some retailers who said, do you mind if it hangs off the back a few inches? Justin, I'm going to say when it comes to big, beefy products like that, I don't want to needlessly spend your money, but I also want you to buy right and buy once. Please do. I get nothing out of this, but please do check out BDI. That is purpose-built furniture-looking stuff for AV equipment, and it's really good. It's really good, and it can house some bigger stuff. As far as retailers who I have found have some depth and girth to their cabinetry, again, it can get costly, but you might be surprised. I'm always surprised when I go shopping there that, yes, there are some really expensive things, but there's also some things that value for money-wise, you're like, oh, wow, that seems like it should be more. And that's Restoration Hardware. Because RH stands for really heavy, they kind of overbuild, and one of the ways they overbuild their stuff is it tends to be pretty big. And their sideboards, you need to go on their website or their catalog and look at their sideboards. You'll find that those are sometimes 24 inches deep, 22, 24 inches deep, and built like absolute tanks. And while there are some of those that get up there in that $7,000-8,000 price tag, there are a number of options that start around the $2,000 mark. And I have a feeling because they're so big, so heavy, and like they're going to stand the test of time. We have several RH pieces in this house, and their quality has been second to none. Brian, do you think we will be seeing a lot more mid-tiered powered speakers that has high-end sound, since more younger generations of people are not as interested in audio? I think, yes, powered speakers are going to become more and more prevalent. People want to be able to maximize their enjoyment with less. The concept of giving up valuable square footage in any space, let alone a small space, for things like amps and cables and sources and this and that, it's antiquated thinking, especially when the more people open up their horizons to, powered speakers and like a small streamer, or just a streamer that sits, innocuously on a shelf that is connected either with cables or wirelessly. I mean, I'm not ashamed to say, like, some of my favorite experiences for me as an individual is when we have a pair of speakers that work really, really well on AirPlay. And so it's a TV mounted on the wall, or Apple TV mounted to the back of the television, and we're just AirPlaying to a pair of speakers. I love that setup. I love that. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that just year over year over year. And it doesn't have anything to do with people not being interested in quality. I think younger people like quality. They just don't like quality in going about it the same way as everyone else. And that's what gets a bad rap. I mean, my brothers want to know, like, is this a good pair of headphones? Is this the right TV? They're not interested in, like, okay, well, you get this TV and then you need to add this out box to it and then you need to use this. No, it's like, what's the best, just the one and doneer. And they still care about quality. So it's my 2 cents anyway. Triple X, Arundel 1528 and used Macintosh stack versus SVS Evolution Pinnacles. That is my decision. Have any of your audiophile friends spoke on the 1528s? No, and I don't know. I have yet to, with the exception of maybe Nemo, who did an Arundel bookshelf speaker recently. I don't know of a single Arundel video that's out there right now that hasn't been part of a sponsored brand deal with Arundel themselves, which I'm always just a little bit like, I'm not saying that you can't have real, opinions and all of that and that the information is bad. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how much involvement Arundel had in the messaging, if any. I don't know. So I tend to just kind of go, those were really nice videos and I can clearly see and the information is correct. I can double check it on a website. But apart from that, I'm like, ugh, what are the odds that an Arundel sponsored video ends with Arundel not being the pick, So there's that. SVS Evolution Pinnacles, I haven't heard those. We have the Titans, bought them with our own money. Obviously, still like them, still use them. I haven't heard an Arundel speaker since we had the 1961s,
I think.
series, which are a completely different animal than this 1500 series, from what I understand. So unfortunately, as much as I would love to give you more insight than that, I don't think I can.
We really liked the 1961s.
I think Arundel's doing some really great things as a brand, but I'm not going to speak on something that I haven't heard, especially in comparison to something that from a brand that I do have and own, even though it's not the Pinnacles.
And we have tried to get their gear, their newer gear, in-house for review. I know some of our viewers have even reached out to them personally. Same thing with Heigl. I'm not sure the pronunciation, but there are just some brands that I guess don't want us to review their products, or at the very least, they don't respond to our requests, and so it leaves us to have that could be the only assumption, reasonable assumption. But we have tried, but we are no longer pursuing those
avenues,
reviews, because it's just, you can only be ignored so many times.
It's like, I can take a hint. I have things to do.
Yeah, it becomes a waste of time for us anyway.
Dwayne writes, have you seen The Agency and Day of the Jackal? First part of your question, Day of the Jackal, awesome, loved it. Season 2 coming.
Is it called The Day of the Jackal?
Yeah.
Oh, I just thought it was called The Jackal.
Yeah, Eddie Redmayne, great
Love
show.
Him. Oh my gosh, just a masterclass in how to dress as a man. I mean, I would wear some of his clothes too, ginger neutral, but just beautiful, beautiful costuming.
Yeah.
For him, and I believe he's given interviews that he said it was really important that he was able to select the wardrobe for that character, and that how much fashion played a role in his character.
He's also
huh?
Oh, go ahead.
No.
I said he's also gone on record that he relies on his wife very heavily on some of those decisions, because it turns out he's colorblind. And so
right, I
when
remember
he
that.
wears color, he relies on a few people in his orbit who he trusts, because he actually can't see the colors that he's wearing.
Which one's The Agency?
The Agency is the one with Michael Fassbender. We started it.
Oh, we did?
We started it. We got two episodes in, and I was just like, let's go. Come on. Anyway, the second part of the question, what happened to Silo Season 2?
Oh, what a dumpster fire. Jeez.
We're not going to give any spoilers or anything, but yeah, Silo Season 2 was not great. It was not great. There were a couple of moments were good, but on the whole, I will tune in for one more episode. Season 3, the Season 3 opener, I will watch that. But if it has any traces of we're gonna get season 2, the sequel, I'm out. I'm out. I'm out. What are we watching now? The Pit.
The Pit, which is
on Max.
What's the actor's name?
Noah Wyle.
Noah Wyle, who was
in ER. Oh.
Yep, who was in the one of the original medical shows.
Oh, he was.
Unless I guess you could you call it MASH? Was MASH?
MASH was a medical show.
Yeah. Well, more modern day.
Michael Crichton's ER.
Yeah. So he was in that, and he's kind of. I guess he was like the new kid in the hospital.
In the show ER.
In the show ER, but then now he's the chief.
The old guy. Yeah.
It's a good show. We were just watching the latest episode last night. And we had a discussion afterwards. Andrew brought up just how great the supporting performances of the patients who are, in each episode, and how strong they are, and how in some cases they're actually a little better than even the, rotation of main characters.
Yeah. Yeah, we were saying it when it comes to medical shows, the people that play the victims or the patients, like their acting has to almost be so good that everyone else playing their doctor gets to react to it. But as an audience member, the stakes are set by these performances. And even in the case of last night's episode, which if you watch The Pit, they're on episode 4. There's one performance, it's so subtle, but boy, talk about effective. But that's one of the things we're watching now. I'm currently doing my first ever rewatch of the entire Walking Dead from episode 1. I'm on season 4, episode 2. I knock off an episode or two, a day, or maybe I'll skip a day, but I'm rewatching that show for the first time in its entirety now that it's been off the air. And I'm enjoying the hell out of it. It's there's more that I'm seeing now in the second go around that I'm like, oh, okay.
Who was it that asked? JJ Newbold. Yeah, we just picked up Severance last night, the season 2.
Yep.
Love season 1.
Mm-hmm.
We just got into the first episode of season 2, so we're going to kind of wait and see with that. I think my favorite show this year, or in the latter part of last year, has been Landman, which is a Tyler Sheridan show. Billy Bob Thornton is absolutely fantastic, and Ali Larder's character. At first, she was a little bit annoying, but there is so much depth to her performance and who she is that you get to know as the episodes go on, and I think she's like the heart of the show.
She is.
And there's so the performances from multiple characters are so good, and the writing is really interesting, and I don't know, big fan of it.
All of the episodes are out too, so if you wanted something you could binge, do Landman. Very highly recommend that one. Max, any chance of a BioLab 50 review this year? I suppose there's always a chance. Nothing definitive or on the schedule yet, but you know me. I don't ever close the door on anything. There's always a chance. Cedric, what is your opinion on audio or monitor audio bronze 50 or 100 versus ELAC for a small basement home theater? Love the channel. I love the monitor audio bronze series, full stop. The bronze series, value for money, punchy, kind of a fun. It's going to be a livelier sound than the ELAC. There's just going to be a little bit of extra oomph at both the bass and the treble that may suit you really, really well. We had monitor audio bronze in our Austin house for the longest time. It was a budget reference for years. I have nothing negative to say about that line. I think it's fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. Is it better than the ELAC? Don't know. Different strokes for different folks. Some people are going to prefer the neutrality and the measurements of the ELAC compared to maybe the slight emphasis here and there that you're going to have on certain frequencies with the bronze. But then other people are going to say that the ELAC is sleepy and the bronze is fun. I could be happy with either one. They're both phenomenal. Guys, I just caught up. Wow. Look at me. Reading the words dumpster fire already hurt. That's how much I love season 2.
In Katajawi, we didn't stop watching Silo season 2. We did finish the entire season. We just didn't think it was very good, and it lost. For me, it lost the momentum that season 1 had, and there was way too much time spent on these little side quests that ultimately I don't feel really paid off, and it just got boring. But if you loved it, that's great. Not trying to convince you to stop watching.
Oh, no, by no means. And I'm hopeful, based on what I've read about season 3 and 4, I'm hopeful that I think the notes have reached the showrunners, and even they have come out and started to comment like, yeah, we're going to go back and, address this and, pick this up and do that. So I'm hopeful. Well, is there...
I have one question that I want you to pull up. I don't know if you can see it.
Okay.
From RYUJIN. It's
Okay.
I just got my first speakers, the Kanto Aura 4. It'll probably take you
I got it.
two scrolls up.
I just got my first speakers, Kanto Aura 4, thinking of adding a streamer amp like a WIM or something better and a subwoofer. What do you guys recommend? As far as streamers go, look, WIM makes a great streamer. They really do. They make a great streamer. Arguably, it's ubiquitous with a wonderful user experience without being like ultra proprietary. And they pack a lot. They pack a lot into their stuff. So you could get Ultra Pro, down to their little hockey puck thing and probably have a great experience. For me, the streamers that I really like the user experience, it's a little less complicated from a user experience, but admittedly, you don't get as many bells and whistles and features that WIM gives you, but I do like Cambridge Audio's line of streamers. I'm not saying that they sound better or worse or anything like that. It's just the user experience of interacting with them primarily on a smart device. I think Cambridge has distilled the experience down to something that's a little bit more manageable, whereas the WIM kind of is like the world is your oyster, but maybe it's not always the most intuitive at every step. And then, of course, you got EverSolo, which is an insane amount of functionality, but I will admit, like, the learning curve can be steep with EverSolo. So on the ease of use scale, I think Cambridge is probably leader, if you will. On the value for money, jack of all trades, everyone, including myself, feels pretty good when they interact with it. WIM is good from a streamer standpoint. And if you want to get super nerdy and really geek out, but know that there's going to be a learning curve, EverSolo. As for the subwoofers, depending on your room, you could get by with a Kanto Sub 8. In my office back in the day, the Kanto Sub 8 was more than enough. Would an SVS PB1000 be better? Yes, it would be. So do you want to make a one and done purchase, which, I always advocate for, then, go a little overboard, get the right thing, and then you're probably done. The SVS will be better than the SB8 from Kanto. And then I just saw someone pop up here. Johnny Johnson. Any experience with Harbeth? Just got some P3 ESR bookshelves and love their warm and wide presentation. I have no experience with Harbeth outside of dealers or trade shows. I've never had a Harbeth product in my personal home. Every time that I have heard a Harbeth at a show or in a properly treated showroom, I have been very impressed.
Have I heard?
You really liked some Harbeths back in Austin. What was that place called?
Whetstone.
Whetstone Audio was a Harbeth dealer, and you were very...
Are you sure you're not confusing the other?
No, because we faced with the door at our backs. Those were Harbeths, and then we turned, and those were the orangutans.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Was there anything else that I needed to catch up on that you flagged?
No.
Okay.
There's still some.
The new Dexter is bad. Oh yeah, it's terrible. Maybe that's the point. I don't know. Sometimes I'm not the right audience, I guess. Was there anything that stood out to me? No? I think, yeah, we got everybody. Well, look at that. All right. Oh, there it goes. Never fails. Mark finally picked up the Lintons, having a very curious 2-year-old son. Realistically, how close to a back wall and high on a shelf can I get them and still be acoustically accurate? Thanks so much. Look, you guys can try whatever you want to try when it comes to speaker placement. There's no harm. There's no harm in going against the grain. There's no harm in trying to figure out and get creative. The only thing, and I was talking to an acquaintance of mine because he recently got Lintons as well. The only thing you have to be aware of is when you play fast and loose with the rules or the recommendations, if you come away going, oh, these aren't as, say, Andrew describes or other people seem to describe. I'm not having the experience that I was made to believe that I'm supposed to have. Before you go judging me or someone else or the speaker, please try and maintain the right perspective and understand where and if maybe you are deviating from what is recommended. In the example of my friend, this acquaintance that I have that got the speakers, he opted not to use the stands and set them straight on the carpeted floor, and admitted they don't really sound as good as I recall or as you described them. And it's like, well, yeah, your ankles are getting a great concert, and you have to just know that, and that's not the speaker's fault, and it's not. I don't consider it my friend's fault either, but you need to, consider that. And so play around with placement. How high can you versus someone else? I don't know. But I always encourage people to experiment and learn their speaker and learn their speaker room interaction, because it is going to vary and be different for everyone. Glenn, my go-to sources for music are the two of you to discover equipment that I love, and Rick Beto on how to really listen to music. Kudos. I'm my own worst enemy. Well, thank you so much, Glenn. I appreciate that. Skylake Pro Cinema. Thank you. Appreciate that. Amp pairing for KEF LS50 Meta around 1000. Music only. Going back to LS50 Meta memory, I think I liked Audiolab's products with the LS50. I know I liked our older Musical Fidelity. I don't know if you can still get it, but I know I liked it. Yamaha was good with the LS50. You could do something like an 800A if you didn't want to go all the way, 1000N if you didn't want to go to the 2000N. Or you go with an 800N. Probably work just as well. Emotiva works with the KEF. So, yeah, you got some options. So, all right, guys. I think that's going to do it for me today. I'm going to close out here. Kevin, thank you so much. Everybody, thank you so much for your support and for just joining us for these 2.5-hour live streams. I have a lot of fun with them. Is there anything you have?
Not really. Ziga Varecko, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, has asked, how do you get to review all these expensive speakers? Honestly, it doesn't really matter what the price point of a speaker is or any product.
Mm-hmm.
The process is the same.
Mm-hmm.
We reach out to a brand or they reach out to us and express an interest, and we let them know exactly what our policy is, which
Mm-hmm.
is you send the product for review, you pay for shipping to and from. You're welcome to provide us with any background information, specs, white papers, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcome to provide that to us. We may or may not use it. Other than that, beyond us letting them know that their product arrived safely, they do not hear from us again until the review goes live. That is unless we come up against some sort of issue or we have questions, then either myself or Andrew will reach out and say, can you answer these following questions so that they're on the record. But other than that, that's really, it's pretty simple. They see the review the same time everyone else does, meaning you, the viewer. And then once the review is over, we contact them and say, hey, thanks so much for giving us the opportunity. Please schedule the pickup at such time and date. And on the products that maybe we decide we want to hang on to a little longer, maybe we have another product in-house that's, a suitable comparison, or we want to, there's an amp that maybe we want to test on another speaker we know is coming. We'll reach out and say, hey, do you mind extending the loan period for these reasons? And they'll either say yes or no. And if we really love something, then we just buy it. And that's pretty much it.
That's how it works.
We don't charge for our reviews. We don't charge for our time. And that's it. So it really doesn't matter how expensive something is. Every brand is treated the same way. The only difference in the review process would be if, like with the Bang & Olufsen Bayo Lab 90 review, because part of the customer experience is that they come in, like a dealer for Bang & Olufsen comes in and sets up the product.
Yeah.
That is included in your purchase price. If that is a part of the service for every customer, then we will allow a brand or their representative or somebody to come in and set those up. But for 99% of everything else you'll see on the channel, we just get it shipped. We, open it up, set it up. I mean, thankfully, Andrew has years and years and years and years of experience. So he knows what he's doing, and he doesn't require someone to walk through the how-to. He follows the manual when he has questions, and he treats every product review as if he is you, the customer.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers your question. John J., wait, so how do you guys make your money? Well, we do include affiliate links in our reviews. So if you were to click on one, that helps to support the channel, but not everyone does, and that's fine. And just because you click on something doesn't mean we're going to earn anything. Other than that, it's AdSense.
Yeah, if you see a Verizon ad or a Mint Mobile ad or something,
It's your view.
Yeah.
And when early on, Andrew and I had this conversation just recently, the other day, like early on, in the first year or two of the channel, we didn't make any money. We didn't. In fact, we didn't even, it took before I jumped in to say, hey, we're leaving some money on the table. There's this thing called an affiliate link. Andrew had no idea. So we started, with Amazon, and thankfully we have a couple of retailers that we feel confident in their customer service, and so we will, we have maybe a direct relationship with them. Members, yes, Glenn says members, yes, they help support our channel. Doing live shows like this is another great way to help support the work we do.
Yeah, we used to have what I would refer to as buckets, and we had about 6 buckets. And now we're down to about 3. AdSense revenue is 70% of how we make our money. Then you have probably 20%, 25% is, the occasional or, affiliate link if people want to use them or they don't. And then the last 10% being members and live streams, and that's how we do it.
But we had this question come up with a brand recently, and I don't think I did the best job of explaining it because I was a little taken off guard by the question.
Yeah.
But really, like I was saying, going back to the first couple of years of the channel, we didn't make enough money to survive.
Yeah.
But now that we've been doing this for 5 years?
5 years.
And we're very close to 400,000 subscribers. We have a long tail, what is considered to be long tail content. So it's very much like a web publisher back in the early 2000s. Say for example, somebody like Stereophile, if they have an online source to their publication, think about how many years that they have been in business.
Yeah.
And they have affiliate links embedded in there, I'm pretty sure. And so that content over time gets read, and so that would be how they would make money. Well, also their ad contracts, which we don't do, but because our content lives indefinitely on YouTube, like for example, people are still watching videos that Andrew created 4 to 5 years ago. We don't earn that much money, but it's just an extra penny eventually adds up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. Here's some financial advice, some business advice, creator advice. When we started this, first and foremost, number one, we never intended to. We didn't know this was going to become our life's work at this stage in our lives. We had other careers, but due to circumstances outside of everyone's control, this was the hand we were dealt. And when we lost our jobs, we needed something to do, and so we did this. Now, I had experience in this field as a print managing editor for many, many years, but I was newer to YouTube and the video space. But we just, like anything I do or anything that we do, we just put our best foot forward and we figured it out. But one of the things that I knew going into this, unlike what I feel a lot of people who look at YouTube and have the wrong impression, is I knew this was going to take years. It was going to take years. And even if we somehow managed to go, quote, viral or anything like that, this was still a multi-year endeavor. And that one that I needed to be committed to without hesitation or fail. And I needed to just do the work. And so, yeah, I looked at how much we had saved and what we could live off of. And I looked at that as runway. And I had this much runway that inevitably I could create, quote, for free. And what I mean by free is I'm not getting AdSense revenue, the YouTube monthly share in, the ads you all skip, was $25, $50, $100, which is not enough to survive on. And you have to remember, like the first year we did YouTube, which within 1 year, we got close to 100,000 subscribers in 1 year, just doing the work. But even at that level, we weren't clearing a quote, livable wage. We weren't making nothing, but like for 6 months, like we'd get a check for like $200, $300. And we were excited about that, but That's what it was.
Yeah, we were living off of savings.
Savings, yeah.
Because I had a photography business that I'd
Yeah.
built for like 10 plus years, and
Mm-hmm.
Andrew had a successful business doing marketing and advertising, and he would write on the side,
Yeah.
occasional article for a publication.
Whatever I could do to
yeah.
make money. But I knew, because I had kind of game planned all of this stuff out, and I was like, if I just stick to the schedule and I just stick to what we're doing, statistically speaking, if things track on the trend that they are, and I just keep doing the work, and I month over month, I get better and better. Not necessarily more views, but the quality of the work gets better and better. In the next 3 to 4 years, we might be able to provide for ourselves doing just this. Now, I ended up being a little bit ahead of schedule by about 6 months, and we were able to close that gap at around year 2 and a half. And we've been full-time doing this ever since as our primary. But understand that it took that concerted effort, because for the first 2 years, we weren't able to make ends meet doing just this, even though I had to keep doing just this, despite going in the hole almost every single month by doing it. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, but it is not automatic. It is not overnight. And I have made mistakes along the way. I have tried things that have been afforded to me, like, for example, as our channel grew, other brands, like, for example, Keeps, they approached us, and you guys, if you've watched this channel for any length of time, you know that we did Keeps ads for their shampoos and their stuff, and I use their products. I genuinely do still use their products. They're no longer a sponsor, but we opened ourselves up to those things, and some of it was really, really positive and a really great experience for me and for Kristi and for the brands, and others were not so much. And overall, especially last year when we took stock of all of the different buckets, if you will, like, a decision was made that while, yeah, I could earn more money by opening us up to more things, inevitably, more money, more problems. And when I opened myself up too much, then you guys started to feel like the content was suffering, or I started to get bogged down by, we have to do a clean my Mac this week, but then I have to do a factor next week. And it just got to be really stressful. And ultimately, it just became more trouble than it was worth. And so we waved goodbye to that bucket and shortened our revenue earning potential by 30%, like that, just instantly. But you, with anything in business and in life, you always have to just weigh, like, what's more important to you. And at the end of the day, as long as we can pay all of our bills, and we can, and we have stuff that since we're self-employed, we can set aside for savings and invest in 401k and retirement, which we do. And we have medical insurance, which we pay for. Pay
a lot for.
Yeah, then I'm okay. Not that Forrest Gump is a true story or anything like that, but there's a line in there that stuck with me since I saw it when I was a teen, and it's like, there's only so much a man needs, and the rest is for showing off. And I feel like we've struck a nice balance. I'm a lot more mentally happy since we've waved goodbye to certain buckets and stresses that were in my life. And that's it. It's just about having the plan and always, always, always kind of checking in with yourself and going, what is it that I'm trying to do? What is it that I need to do? And what is it that I want to do? And so long as your decisions for those 3 things are in relative alignment and you're not deviating or going off script too much for the wrong reasons, you can get there. But the people that say it's easy, or the people that claim to have an answer, like, oh, you just have to do this, it's like, no, just because it works for one person, like, I would never sit here and, like, this is my advice, but I am not saying that if you were to take it, you're going to have the same experience as me. And I think a lot of people look at people in my position and go, okay, I'm just going to copy paste. And then it doesn't work out. And then they're like, well, then Andrew must be lying. He must be doing something. And at the end of the day, it's not like that.
Someone made a comment about other channels having a tendency to just push boxes, and that they're losing credibility, and as if they're only interested in pushing boxes for revenue. Carlos made that comment, and I mean, look, I'm not saying that there aren't. I don't care what you're talking about in life. There is always going to be a segment of the population or a company or a person that's going to be looking at it strictly by the numbers, and they treat it like a job, and that's really the bottom line or their priority. But I don't think that everyone is that way, and I don't like painting the entire hobby with that brush. Mm-hmm. What I see happening more, and especially more and more frequently now, is there are some people who've made it like their cross to bear, as if not relying on something like an affiliate link, or not relying on a brand to send them a product for review. They've made that seem as if it's the only way to be credible.
Yeah.
And that is just, if you are a self-made person, and you got a trust fund, or I don't know, you have a way to support yourself financially, and this is just for fun. Mm-hmm. It's not possible to do this like that.
Not right away.
It's especially right. Yeah.
Out of the gate, no, it's not.
No, I mean, is that what you may have to do in the beginning? Yeah. Yes, because you're an unknown quantity. But to suggest that people like us, mm-hmm. who will take a product being sent from a brand as, well, you can't trust their opinions or their reviews because they got that sent to them for free. Okay, well, we did send it back. We didn't get to keep it, but I just think that living in that sort of reality it's just not realistic. I mean,
again,
and I just think that there are people, channels who just they keep hitting that button, and they have enough people who start to question the people that maybe they were watching and enjoying. They start to question their reviews, and it is unfortunate, because I don't even know how someone that maybe they're very passionate about this, and perhaps they want to step into the world of creating a channel, and maybe it isn't even about HiFi or whatnot, but the pressures that an audience can put on a creator when they're just doing their best, and they're not trying to take advantage of you, but they get painted in that brush so quickly, it gets to be very hard to climb out of that hole. And I kind of spoke to that earlier about some of the things that we continue to face even now after 5 years into this, like still having to explain, like, this is how we do things. No, we don't get paid for our reviews. And it just feels like a broken record. And I'm like, at what point can we just not have to answer this question, But I don't know if it will ever stop.
And we're all big boys and girls. It's fine if there is no end to it, It's just I guess the way it goes, but
Wirehead says, when an influencer recommends a product with a glowing review, but it turns out to be crap when people buy it, there are consequences for the influencer.
100%.
Of course there are. But I know you put influencer in quotes, like it's a 4-letter word. And that's another thing that, other channels, again, not just in this space, I'm talking generally, have painted, like they've come up with this word influencer in a way to as to denigrate their their credibility or their worth. And it's just really unfortunate. I think there's so much jealousy that comes out in people, and that turn what someone's trying to do legitimately into this bad thing. And I would be careful that you understand when you are watching a channel like that just keeps pushing the button of you can't trust anybody but me. Like, stop and think for a second. Like, why should I only trust them? They likely have something to gain by continuing to perpetuate this idea that you can't trust anyone, or that if someone has an affiliate link, they're a paid shill. You know what I'm saying? So I would just be cautious about overgeneralizing what people are trying to do. Now, if they repeatedly prop up something that ends up not being what they claim or the brand claims it to be, then yeah, you have to start to take stock and ask yourself a question. Is this a resource I want to continue to, go to? But the idea that everybody's out to get you, I don't personally believe that. I really don't.
I mean, I can just say from my perspective, and I'm gonna close it out with this. Whenever I do anything, whenever I start any endeavor, whether it's this channel or it's anything that I've ever done, I make rules with myself. I have an understanding with myself. And one of the things that I don't do is my integrity is never for sale. My ability to sit and sleep with myself and my conscience is never for sale. There's no amount of money that you can give me that's going to make me go back and be untrue to myself. And this is something that I know when I tell people that, or when a brand is like, trying to beat around the bush, and it's like, look, send it or don't. At some point, I do have to stop the conversation and just be like, you're either going to send it or you're not. And if you don't send it, that's fine. I don't care. But that's not going to stop me from potentially reviewing it, because I'll just go get it. I'll just go buy it. It's easier if I don't have to go through these extra steps, true, but it doesn't buy you any favor. And no amount of anything is going to buy you favor with me. Because at the end of the day, my boss are the people who watch the videos. And they let me know when I'm doing a good job and when I'm doing a not so good job. And they're a better barometer for how to navigate the crazy world we're in than anything else. And everyone is free to do whatever they want to do as far as how they want to conduct themselves in their business. I genuinely do not care. I genuinely do not care. The only time that I care is when other people make my business somehow their business without ever trying to contact me or ask me, and then that's when I have to deal with it. Because if you start messing with my reputation or attempting to mess with my reputation that I take very seriously, then we're going to have a problem. But aside from that, I really don't care. I really, really don't. I know how we do things, and that's that. If you want to believe me, great. I have no reason to mislead you. If you don't want to believe me, I can't force you to see things my way. And I've gotten to the point in my career and in my age where I'm like, I try my best to take the Keanu Reeves approach, which is, he famously said, I think on The Tonight Show, he's like, I'm to the point where someone can look at me and go 1 + 1 = 4. And I just look at him and go, good for you, man.
No, he's like, you bet.
You bet. And that's kind of how I am. So yeah, that's the end of that. I know it comes up. I know people are curious. I know what it looks like. But sometimes Occam's razor is true. And at least in our case, the simplest answer is we work our asses off every single day. We work our asses off. And I'm not, this is not me patting myself on the back. Forgive me. Who cares about monetization at this point? I fucking kill myself for this job. I have been laid up, unable to stand up straight some weeks because I got no one here to help me to do some of the heavy lifting, literal heavy lifting. I mean, you saw how excited I was when we discovered that hand truck, that crank thing that lets me mount TVs by myself, because these 98 inchers, obviously I don't have the wingspan to just muscle up a 98 incher, and she's not really in the ability to always do that. But
I mean, it really depended on the TV.
Yeah.
But once we went definitely to the 98s, like it really depends on the TV. Like
some are light.
Some are light, so they're deceptive. They look heavy, but they're not.
Yeah,
and then some even smaller ones, way more than the 98 inch ones.
That Hisense 85 inch, that thing was made out of lead. It's like the heaviest TV. That's like the heaviest TV I've ever freaking mounted.
And I don't help with TV mounting anymore. Well, I mean, unless there's like the occasional assist to make sure he doesn't run into the wall or whatever.
Yeah,
as
don't
moving.
back up.
Yeah. Pivot. But
actually, you know what? You do help. There's a very crucial part of these big unboxings that you do, and that is when you're trying to take the top off of a giant 100-inch TV. I mean, just an empty cardboard top that has to come all the way off. That's about 40, 50 pounds of awkward weight that you're taking straight up over your head. So she'll come in, like kneel low and hold the TV from tipping over because you're just like, rah, so it's key. It's key.
But no, Andrew does. People love to give me credit for stuff like the video work that I don't do. Andrew is the filmmaker. He does all the testing for all the products. He does all the measurements. He writes the scripts. Then I come in and I read the script and I
zhuzh it up.
I zhuzh it up a little bit. Sometimes he has a tendency to occasionally be long-winded in his in his writing.
The stream was only supposed to end 40 minutes ago. Long-winded. Get out of here.
I know I can't get to the point when I'm talking live, but he's the offender when it comes to the written word. And so I'll go in and shorten things up or make them a little bit more fun. A lot of the one-liners are mine. I will take credit for that. The little zingers, that's me.
Some of those I have to go back in and be like, we're not saying that.
Most of them get through. I handle all of the logistics, requesting products, requesting product returns, and just like the back end stuff. And then I come in and, I do listen. Like I do my own way of evaluating a product, but I'm not doing it to the level Andrew does. I don't claim to have that sort of knowledge or experience, but I will say that I have learned so much because, again, I did not ask for this to become a career, and I have very much learned on the job. And so I think maybe part of the reason some people like my perspective is because maybe you find yourself more in a position like me, and maybe you don't have all of the inner knowledge. And so I hope anyway, that's my goal, is to provide you with a more layman's approach. But I have been forced to learn a lot, and I think my the depth of my knowledge has grown.
Oh yeah,
quite a bit. So I can hold my own in a conversation, but yeah, I don't really have the desire to go into the deep inner workings of a product. I'm like, does it work? Does it sound good? Do I like the way it looks? Am I going to be able to stomach looking at it every day? Fantastic. Did the product arrive intact? Oh boy, that's worth gold, so.
All right. Well, we're going to end it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to end it there. I'm going to end it real quick here with a nice little happy recommendation from our friend Chris. Sidestep, Sandfish, Palm Springs, effing good. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
If you're ever in the Palm Springs, California area, cannot recommend Sandfish enough. If you like sushi and Asian food, if you're like, oh my God, I threw up in my mouth just hearing the words, don't go there because that's what they serve, and don't do that. But if that's your bag, oh, super good, super good. All right, guys.
Oh yes, Brian. He's a great husband. He's a great husband. He's my best friend, and I couldn't do this life without him. Wouldn't want to anyway.
Try. I do my best. So, all right, guys.
That's it.
That's it for the stream. Tune in Sunday. Surprising fun product on Sunday that we were hoping to have brought you sooner than we did, but we're glad that we are able to bring it to you now. A nice little piece. Nice piece. I'm really excited. So tune in Sunday. We got a brand new video for you on that one. And then, in the meantime, have a great rest of your Friday and Saturday.
Yeah,
and
stay warm if you're cold or under snow.
Yeah, and hearts go out to everyone affected by the weather and the fires. They're still going. One just popped up that was dangerously close to where I used to live. And I'm not saying that because you need to feel bad for me, but I've lived through a couple of fires in Southern California, and it's awful. So my heart goes out to anyone that's affected. Please stay safe. Yeah, it sucks. I know. So anyway, until Sunday, have a great rest of your day. Be kind to everyone, and we'll see you Sunday. All right,
Thanks
guys.
again for joining us.
Bye.